Hi guys, tonight we drift quietly into the world of a lonely settler living in a log cabin, buried deep under the winter snow. The air is biting and sharp. You can feel the cold nip at the end of your nose and the tips of your ears. The sky above is a heavy, flat grey, like a sheet of old lead. Around you, the tall trees are stiff and still, waiting for the storm to start. The only sound is the dry rattle of a few dead leaves hanging on a brown branch. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now dim the lights and let the story begin. You are standing just outside your door. The ground is hard and frozen under your boots. For weeks, you have been getting ready for this moment. You have chopped wood until your arms felt heavy. You have stacked the logs in a long, neat line against the side of your house. This house is small, and it is made of thick trees that you cut down yourself. You call it a log cabin. Most of these cabins are not very big. They are usually only about 16 feet wide and 20 feet long. This is just enough space for one person to stay warm and keep their things safe. The walls are made of dark brown logs. Between each log, there are gaps. You have filled these gaps with a mix of mud, grass, and sticks. This is called chinking. It keeps the wind from whistling through the cracks and stealing your heat. You reach out and touch the rough bark of a log. It feels like stone because it is so cold. You can see your breath in the air. It looks like little puffs of white smoke. You look up at the sky again. The grey clouds are hanging very low. They seem to be resting on the tops of the pine trees. There is a smell in the air that only comes before a big snow. It smells clean and wet and very, very cold. You know that the sun will be going down soon. In the winter, the light leaves the world much too early. You feel a tiny bit of dampness on your cheek, then another. You look down at the sleeve of your coat. A single white flake has landed there. It is shaped like a tiny star with 6 points. It stays there for a second, bright white against the dark cloth, and then it melts away. It leaves a tiny wet spot behind. You watch as another one falls, and then another. They are coming down slowly, drifting through the still air like feathers falling from a bird. You decide it is time to go inside. You turn to your door. It is made of thick wooden planks held together with heavy nails. You lift the iron latch. It makes a sharp clink sound. In this quiet forest, that small sound seems to travel 4 miles. You push the door open. It is heavy and moves slowly on its leather hinges. You step over the wooden beam at the bottom of the doorway and pull the door shut behind you. You drop the wooden bar into place to lock it. Now, you are safe inside your own little world. The room is dim. The only light comes from the small fire burning in the hearth. The hearth is the floor of your fireplace, made of flat grey stones. You walk over to it. You are wearing a shirt made of linsey woolsey. This is a special kind of cloth that people in the old days made by weaving linen and wool together. It is a bit scratchy against your skin, but it is very strong and keeps you warm. You can feel the heat from the fire starting to soak into your clothes. It feels good after being outside in the biting air. You take a heavy log from the pile by the fire and place it on the coals. A few bright sparks fly up the chimney. They look like tiny orange fireflies. You watch them until they vanish into the black soot. You sit down in your wooden chair. It was made by hand, and the seat is curved to fit your body. You lean back and listen. Outside, the world is becoming very quiet. When snow falls, it acts like a soft blanket. It soaks up all the noise. You cannot hear the birds anymore. You cannot hear the sound of the dry grass rubbing together. There is only the soft hiss of the fire and the sound of your own breathing. You look at the one small window in your cabin. The glass is thick and a bit wavy. Through it, You can see the white flakes falling faster now. They are starting to cover the dark ground. The brown grass is disappearing. The black stumps of the trees are getting white caps. You think about how far away the nearest town is. It is many miles through the thick woods and over the frozen hills. If you wanted to see another person, you would have to walk 4 days. But right now, you are the only person 4 miles. You are the watchman of this little piece of the woods. You feel a sense of peace. You are not lonely, because the cabin is full of things you have made. You know where every log came from. You know the story of every tool hanging on the wall. You look at your spider skillet sitting near the fire. It is a heavy iron pan with 3 long legs. Those legs let it sit right over the hot coals without smothering the fire. You will use it later to cook your supper, but for now, you just watch the light dance on its black surface. The orange glow of the fire moves across the walls. It makes the shadows of your tools look like giant hands reaching up toward the ceiling. The snow is falling harder now. You can see it piling up on the window ledge. It looks like sugar being poured out of a bag. Soon, it will cover the bottom of the glass. The world outside is turning into a white ocean. You are like a sailor in a wooden boat, floating in a sea of ice. But your boat is strong. Your boat is warm. You close your eyes for a moment. You think about the path you walked to get here. You remember the dusty tracks of the wagon and the sound of the wind in the long grass of the plains. That seems like a very long time ago. Now, everything is different. The green leaves are gone. The heat of the sun is a distant memory. The winter has come to stay, and it has brought the silence with it. You stand up and walk to the window. You have to wipe the fog off the glass with the palm of your hand. The glass is very cold, and the water on it feels like ice. You peer out into the growing dark. The trees are starting to look like ghosts. They are losing their shapes in the falling white. You can no longer see the line where the ground ends and the sky begins. Everything is becoming one single, blurry grey color. You realize that this is the first night of the long cold. You will be inside these walls for a long time. You will not see the dark earth again for many months. But you have your fire. You have your roof. You have your thoughts. You watch one more flake hit the glass and slide down. It leaves a little trail in the frost. You take a deep breath and smell the wood smoke and the dry scent of the logs. You feel a deep, quiet calm in your chest. The big snow has started, and you are ready for it. You walk back to your chair and sit down. The fire is crackling softly. A pocket of sap in the wood makes a loud pop and sends a tiny glow into the air. You watch the embers. They are a deep, glowing red, like the heart of a mountain. You feel the weight of your woolen socks on your feet. You feel the sturdiness of the floor beneath you. You are tucked away, hidden from the world, and the snow is slowly burying your home in a soft, white hug. This is the start of your solitary winter, and the watch has just begun. You wake up the next morning, but the cabin does not look like it usually does. Usually, when the sun comes up, a soft grey light fills the room. It filters through the small window and shows you the dust dancing in the air. But today, the room is very dark. It is as dark as the middle of the night. You sit up in your bed. Your bed is a simple wooden frame pushed into the corner of the cabin. The mattress is stuffed with dried corn husks. Every time you move, it makes a dry, rustling sound, like walking through autumn leaves. You pull your heavy woolen blankets up to your chin. Even inside, the air is so cold that you can see your breath. It looks like a ghostly ribbon floating in the dark. You listen for the wind, but you do not hear it. Last night, the wind was shouting and banging against the logs. Now, there is only a deep, heavy silence. It is the kind of silence that feels thick, like you are underwater. You get out of bed and your feet hit the cold floorboards. You quickly put on your boots. You walk over to the window to see why it is so dark. When you look at the glass, You do not see the trees or the sky. All you see is a solid wall of white. The snow has piled up so high that it has covered the entire window. It is pressed right against the glass. You put your hand on the pane. The glass feels like a sheet of ice. The snow on the other side is cold enough to turn your fingers numb in a second. You realize then that the storm was much bigger than you thought. You walk to the door. You reach for the latch string. This is a very important part of a pioneer home. The latch string is a long piece of leather made from cowhide. It goes through a small hole in the door and connects to a wooden bar on the inside. In the summer, you leave the string hanging outside so friends can pull it to come in. But in the winter, and especially during a storm, you pull the string inside so the door stays shut tight. You grab the leather string and feel how tough and cold it is. You try to push the door open, just to see how much snow is there. You lean your shoulder against the heavy wood and push. The door does not move. You push harder, putting all your weight into it. The door groans, but it stays shut. The snow outside is packed so tight against the cabin that it is like a wall of bricks. You are truly shut in. You are buried under the white blanket of the woods. A long time ago, in the year 1830, there was a winter so big that people called it the winter of the deep snow. In some places, the snow was so high that it covered the roofs of small houses. People had to stay inside for many days, just like you are doing now. It is a strange feeling to know that the rest of the world is gone. There are no paths. There are no roads. There is only your cabin and the millions of tiny snowflakes pressing against it. You walk back to the fireplace. The fire from last night has turned into a pile of grey ash, but you can see a few tiny red eyes peeking out from the bottom. These are the live coals. You take a small iron poker and gently stir the ash. You find a few glowing embers that are still hot. You carefully place some thin strips of dry wood, cold kindling, on top of the glow. You lean down and blow very softly. Your breath makes the embers turn a bright, happy orange. A tiny curl of blue smoke rises up. Then, a small yellow flame licks the wood. The fire starts to grow. You add a larger log, and then another. As the wood catches fire, the room begins to change. The orange light spreads across the floor. It climbs up the walls and chases the shadows into the corners. The cabin feels smaller now, but it also feels safer. The thick logs of the walls are your protection. They were cut from tall oak trees, and they are strong enough to hold up the weight of the snow. You hear a low creak from above your head. It is a long, slow sound, mun en ung. It is the sound of the heavy wooden beams in the ceiling. They are feeling the weight of the snow on the roof. You know that there must be many feet of snow up there. It is heavy, like a giant hand pressing down on your house. But you do not feel afraid. These logs were notched together by hand. You fit them together so they would lock tight. The more weight that presses down on them, the tighter they hold. You decide to make a bit more light so you can see your way around. You reach for your Betty lamp. This is a small metal pot shaped like a pear. It has a little handle on one side and a place for a wick on the other. You fill it with tallow, which is fat from a cow that has been melted down and cooled. You light the wick from the fire. The lamp gives off a small, flickering light and the smell like cooking meat. It is not a very bright light, but in this buried room, it looks like a star. You carry the lamp to the corner where you keep your tools. You see your wooden shovel leaning there. It is made from one solid piece of wide timber. You think about how much work it will be to dig your way out when the storm finally stops. But for now, there is nothing you can do. You cannot fight the snow. You must wait for it to finish its work. You sit down in your chair and look at the wall of snow through the window glass. Even though you are trapped, you feel a strange sense of comfort. The world cannot get to you here. The cold wind cannot touch you. The snow is actually acting like a giant coat for your cabin. It keeps the wind away from the cracks in the logs. Inside, the air is getting warmer. The smell of the burning oak wood is sweet and thick. You take a moment to just be still. You look at the way the firelight reflects in the wavy glass of the window. Beyond that glass is a frozen world, but here, there is warmth. You can hear the fire popping. You can hear the soft hiss of the tallow burning in your lamp. You are alone, but the cabin feels full of life. Every object in here has a purpose. The heavy iron pot, the woolen blankets, the sturdy logs, they are all working together to keep you safe. You lean your head back against the wooden slats of your chair. You watch the shadows of the flames dance on the ceiling beams. You think about how small you are compared to the great woods and the big sky. But even though you are small, you are clever. You have a fire. You have a roof. You are tucked into the earth like a seed waiting for the spring. The watch continues, and for now, the white wall outside is your only neighbor. You close your eyes and let the warmth of the hearth soak into your skin, listening to the silence of the buried world. The day moves slowly when you are living under the snow. Time feels different when you cannot see the sun move across the sky. In your little cabin, the light is strange. It is not the bright, yellow light of a normal morning. Instead, it is a soft, pale blue. This blue light filters down through the deep snow that covers your roof and your window. It makes the whole room look like it is at the bottom of a quiet, cold lake. You sit at your wooden table and watch the way this light touches the things you own. Everything looks soft and blurry in the blue glow. Living in the dark under the snow is a very quiet thing. Usually, you can hear the birds in the trees or the sound of the wind in the tall grass. But now, all of those sounds are gone. The snow is like a thick piece of wool wrapped around your house. It stops any noise from coming in. It also stops any noise from going out. In the old days, people knew that snow was actually a friend to the lonely settler. Even though it looks cold, a thick layer of snow acts like a blanket for a house. It keeps the warm air inside and the freezing wind outside. This is a simple fact of the woods. The deeper the snow, the warmer the cabin can stay. You decide you need a bit more light to see by. You reach for your horn lantern. This is a very old kind of lamp. It is a metal box with a candle inside. But the sides are not made of glass. Glass was very expensive and hard to carry on a wagon because it breaks so easily. Instead, the sides of this lantern are made from thin sheets of cow horn. The horn has been soaked in water and pressed until it is thin enough to see through. It is not clear like a window, but it lets a warm, yellow glow pass through it. You light the candle and watch the yellow light mix with the blue light of the snow. You walk around your small room. The corners are full of deep shadows. Your boots make a soft thump-thump on the floor. You look at your floor. It is made of puncheons. These are large logs that have been split in half. The flat side is turned up to make a floor. It is not smooth like the floors in a big city house. It has bumps and ridges. You can feel the grain of the wood through the soreness of your boots. In some places, you have laid down mats made of dried rushes. These are long, thin plants that grow near the river. You spent many evenings in the autumn weaving them together. They feel springy under your feet and help keep the cold from rising up through the floor. You stop by the window again. The blue light is fading as the day moves on. You can see the patterns of the frost on the inside of the glass. The frost looks like tiny white trees and silver ferns. It is so cold outside that the moisture from your breath has frozen right onto the pane. You reach out a finger and touch one of the ice ferns. It is cold enough to make your skin sting. You can feel the power of the winter just a few inches away. Outside, the world is a frozen desert, but inside, you are the master of your own warm island. You spend a long time just sitting and listening. In this deep quiet, you can hear things you never noticed before. You hear the crackle of the wood as it settles in the fire. You hear the soft tick of the cooling embers. You even hear the tiny sound of a mouse moving behind the logs in the wall. The mouse is looking for warmth, just like you. You don't mind the company. In a place this lonely, any living thing feels like a friend. You think about how many people are tucked away in cabins, just like this one, scattered across the map. Each one is a tiny spark of light hidden under the white snow. You decide it is time to eat something. You go to your cupboard. It is just a few shelves made of rough boards. You take down a wooden trencher. A trencher is a simple plate carved from a single piece of maple wood. It has a hollow in the middle to hold your food. It feels smooth and heavy in your hands. You have used it so many times that the wood has turned a deep, dark brown. You walk to the hearth and ladle some thick porridge from a black iron pot. The steam rises up in big white clouds, smelling of salt and cooked grain. As you eat, you look at the walls. The logs are thick and strong. They have a rough texture that you like to touch. You can see the marks where you used your axe to shape them. Each mark tells a story of a day's work. You remember how the sun felt on your back when you were building this place. You remember the smell of the fresh wood shavings. Now, those logs are keeping you alive. They are holding up the weight of the world. You feel a sense of deep reflection. You are all alone, but you do not feel small. You feel like you are part of the winter. You are like the bears sleeping in their dens, or the seeds waiting under the dirt. You are resting. The earth is resting. There is a great peace in knowing that you have everything you need. You have wood for the fire. You have food in the jars. You have a roof that does not leak. You realize that happiness can be a very simple thing. It can be the warmth of a bowl in your hands, or the glow of a horn lantern in a dark room. The blue light at the window turns to a deep purple, and then to black. The day is over. Even though you never saw the sun, you are back in the world of shadows and firelight. You move your chair closer to the hearth. The heat feels like a physical weight against your legs. It is a good weight. You watch the flames lick the soot on the back of the fireplace. The soot is black and velvety. Sometimes a little piece of it glows red before falling into the ash. You think about the miles of snow outside. It is piled up over your head. It is sitting on the branches of the trees until they bend down to touch the ground. It is filling the valleys and covering the frozen rivers. Underneath it all, life is waiting, and here, in the heart of the snow, you are waiting too. You are the guardian of the hearth. You are the keeper of the flame. You take a deep breath. The air is warm and smells of dry wood and old wool. You feel a wave of sleepiness wash over you. The quiet is so heavy that it makes your eyelids feel like lead. You lean your head back and let the lantern light flicker and dance behind your closed eyes. The watch is quiet tonight. The world is buried, and you are safe in your wooden nest. You listen to the heartbeat of the cabin, the slow, steady pulse of the fire, and you know that you are exactly where you are meant to be. The darkness is not scary. It is just a place to rest. You let yourself sink deeper into the chair, wrapped in the silence of the deep, white winter. The fire is the heart of your home. In the deep winter, while the snow sits heavy on your roof, the fire is the thing that keeps you alive. You sit in your chair and look at the glowing heap of wood. It is your job to make sure this fire never goes out. In these times, a fire is not just something pretty to look at. It is a tool. It is a friend. If the fire dies, the cabin will turn as cold as the woods in just an hour. The logs of the walls are thick, but the winter is stronger. The heat is the only thing that keeps the frost from creeping across the floor and climbing up your legs. You stand up and walk to your woodpile near the hearth. Your movements are slow and steady. You don't want to rush. You pick up a large log of oak. Oak is a good wood for the night. It is heavy and dense, which means it burns for a long time. Some woods, like pine, burn very fast. They make a lot of noise and send many sparks into the air, but they finish quickly. For the long, dark hours of the night shift, you need the slow, steady heat of the oak. You feel the rough bark under your fingers. It feels like dried mud, bumpy and hard. You can smell the faint, sweet scent of the forest still hiding inside the wood. You lean over and place the log onto the andirons. Andirons are a very important piece of microhistory in a cabin like yours. They are two heavy iron stands that sit inside the fireplace. Some people call them fire dogs because they look a bit like little metal dogs standing guard. They have 2 feet in the front and a long bar that goes back into the coals. These fire dogs are very helpful. They hold the logs up off the floor of the hearth. This allows the air to move underneath the wood. Without air, a fire cannot breathe. If a fire cannot breathe, it will choke on its own smoke and die. You watch as the small flames reach up to touch the new oak log. They lick at the bark, turning it black and then a glowing red. There is a simple historical fact that you always keep in your mind. Many pioneers would go 4 months or even years without ever letting their fire go out. Starting a new fire is very hard work. You do not have matches in a little box. To start a fire from nothing, you would have to use a piece of flint and a bit of steel. You would have to strike them together to make a tiny spark, and then try to catch that spark on a piece of charred cloth. It takes a long time and a lot of patience. Sometimes, if a person's fire went out, they would have to walk to their nearest neighbor with a metal bucket to borrow some hot coals. But your neighbors are miles away, buried under the same snow. So, you watch your fire with great care. You are the guardian of the flame. You take your iron poker and move the glowing coals around. The heat hits your face in a warm wave. It feels like sitting in the summer sun for a moment. You can feel the skin on your cheeks get tight from the warmth. The light from the fire is a deep, rich orange. It makes the whole cabin look like it is made of gold. You look at the way the light catches the edges of your iron pot and the smooth handle of your axe. Everything looks soft and safe. The wood makes a soft hiss sound. This happens when there is a little bit of water or sap still inside the log. The heat turns the water into steam, and the steam pushes its way out of the wood. It sounds like a tiny tea kettle. Sometimes, a big bubble of sap will pop with a loud crack and send a spray of orange stars into the room. You watch them land on the stone hearth and fade away into grey ash. You sit back down and let the silence fill the room. It is so quiet that you can hear the wood speaking. As the logs get hot, they move and settle. They make little groaning noises. You find yourself watching the middle of the fire, where the heat is the strongest. The coals are not orange. They are almost white. They pulse with light, getting brighter and then dimmer, like the fire is breathing. You lose track of time just watching that pulse. It is very easy to fall into a dream while looking at the fire. You think about all the people who have sat in front of a fire just like this one, all through history. It is a very old feeling. It makes you feel like you are part of a long line of watchers. You look at the chimney. It is made of stones and thick clay. You can see the black soot covering the inside. This soot is called creosote. You have to be careful that it doesn't get too thick, or it could catch fire itself. But tonight, it is just a dark velvet lining for your hearth. The smoke rises in a straight line, going up and out into the cold night. You imagine the smoke curling out of the chimney and drifting over the white snow. It is a sign to the world that someone is alive and warm inside this mountain of ice. Your feet are stretched out toward the heat. You are wearing your thickest woolen socks. They are a dull grey color, and the wool is thick and fuzzy. You can feel the heat moving through the wool and warming your toes. It is the best feeling in the world when it is freezing outside. You feel a sense of pride. You cut the wood. You stacked it. You built the fire. You are taking care of yourself. The cabin begins to creak again. The cold outside is trying to get in. It presses against the logs, making the wood shrink and groan. But the fire pushes back. The heat fills every corner. It creeps under the bed and into the cupboards. It wraps around you like a heavy coat. You pick up a smaller piece of hickory wood and toss it in. Hickory is a very hard wood, and it gives off a wonderful smell. It smells like roasted nuts and autumn air. It is a clean, sharp smell that cuts through the dusty scent of the cabin. You watch the new flames dance. They are thin and yellow, moving like silk ribbons in the wind. They wrap around the logs, jumping from one piece of wood to the other. You feel very safe. The fire is your wall against the winter. As long as you have wood, you have hope. You look at your big pile of logs in the corner. You have enough for many days. You have done your work well. The light of the fire is getting lower as the logs settle into the coals. The room gets a little darker, and the shadows on the wall grow taller. But the heat is still there, steady and strong. You reach for a small woolen blanket and wrap it around your shoulders. You are not cold, but the weight of the blanket feels good. It feels like a hug. You close your eyes for a second and just listen to the crackle pop of the hearth. The world outside is a frozen wasteland, but here, in the center of the snow, there is a small, glowing sun. You are the watchman of the night, and your fire is burning bright. You stand up from your wooden chair. The fire is still warm, but a small, sharp feeling in your stomach tells you it is time to think about food. In the winter, when you are trapped under the snow, your food is your treasure. You do not have a shop to go to. You cannot walk down the road to buy a loaf of bread. Everything you have to eat for the next 4 or 5 months is already inside these 4 walls with you. You walk over to the corner of the cabin where you keep your stores. This is your pantry, though it is just a few deep shelves and some heavy bags sitting on the floor. You lean down and touch one of the bags. It is made of very rough, coarse cloth called burlap. The fabric is scratchy and brown, and it smells like the dry earth of the fields. You run your hand over the outside of the bag. Inside, you can feel the hard, round shapes of dried corn. It feels like a bag full of tiny, smooth stones. This corn is very important. You spent many days in the late summer picking it and letting it dry in the sun until the kernels were hard enough to crack a tooth. You begin to count your bags. You do this every few days, even though you know the number. It makes you feel safe to see them all lined up. 1, 2, 3 bags of corn. You have 2 bags of wheat, which you will use to make flour for bread. You also have a smaller bag of dried peas and a big sack of navy beans. These beans are small and white, and they are as hard as marbles. You have to soak them in water for a long time before you can cook them, or they will stay hard as rocks. You look at the bags and do the math in your head. There is a simple historical fact that every settler had to know. A single person usually needed about 12 bushels of grain to get through a whole year. A bushel is a way of measuring a large amount of food, about enough to fill a big bucket. You look at your sacks and feel a sense of relief. You have enough. You were clever during the harvest time. You did not waste anything. You even saved the smallest ears of corn. You knew that, in the middle of a buried winter, even a handful of grain is worth more than a handful of gold. You moved to the heavy wooden barrel sitting next to the bags. This is a very special piece of micro-history. It is your salt pork barrel. Inside this barrel, there are thick pieces of pork packed in a very salty water called brine. Before people had refrigerators to keep things cold, they used salt to save their meat. The salt stops the meat from going bad. You reach for the heavy wooden lid and lift it. The smell of salt and savory fat fills the air. It is a strong, sharp smell. You look inside and see the greyish-pink meat floating in the cloudy water. This meat is called sobelly. It is mostly fat, but that is a good thing in the winter. Your body needs the fat to stay warm while you are living in the cold. You put the lid back on the barrel with a solid thud. You feel a deep sense of quiet as you look at your supplies. In this moment, the cabin is very still. You can hear the tiny tinkle of ice sliding down the chimney. You can hear the soft, rhythmic sound of your own heart. You realize that you are completely responsible for your own life. There is no one to help you if you run out of food. There is no one to bring you a snack if you are hungry. This thought might make some people feel scared, but it makes you feel strong. You have planned for this. You have worked for this. The food in these bags is the result of your own hands working in the dirt. You feel a deep connection to the ground, even though it is buried under 6 feet of snow right now. You look at a small wooden box sitting on the top shelf. This is where you keep your dear things, the things that cost a lot of money and are hard to find. Inside the box is a small bag of salt, a tiny tin of black pepper, and a small cone of brown sugar. The sugar is not loose like the sugar we have today. It is pressed into a hard, dark shape like a mountain. To use it, you have to use a small tool to scrape bits of sugar off the side. You treat it like a great treasure. You only use it on very special days. You think about Christmas coming soon and wonder if you will use a little bit of that sugar then. You walk back to the bags of corn. You decide to take out a small scoop for your supper. You untie the leather string that holds the bag shut. The string is stiff from the cold. As you open the bag, the dry, dusty smell of the corn fills your nose. You reach your hand deep into the bag. The corn feels cool and smooth against your skin. You let the kernels pour through your fingers. They make a sound like falling rain as they hit the other seeds in the bag. Click, clack, click. It is a musical sound. You think about the long winter ahead. You will have to be careful. You cannot eat too much at once. You must be a good husbandman. This is an old word for someone who takes very good care of their things and makes sure nothing is wasted. You will measure your food every day. You will make sure the mice do not get into the sacks. You will keep the salt pork barrel closed tight so the brine doesn't dry up. You are the manager of this little shop, and you are your only customer. You take a deep breath and smell the mixed scents of the pantry corner. There is the smell of the dry burlap, the sharp salt of the pork, the sweet scent of the dried beans, and the faint, dusty smell of the wheat. It is the smell of survival. It is a good smell. It reminds you that you are safe. You are not going to be hungry. Your belly will be full, and your fire will be warm. You look at the shadows dancing on the burlap bags. The orange light from the fireplace reaches all the way over here. It makes the brown cloth look warm and soft. You feel a great sense of gratitude. You think of the sun that grew this corn. You think of the rain that watered the wheat. Even though you are in the dark, buried under the snow, those things are still with you. They are inside the bags. They are waiting to give you strength. You tie the leather string back around the corn bag. You make sure the knot is tight. You pat the side of the bag, almost like you are patting a horse or a dog. Thank you, you whisper. The sound of your voice is very soft in the quiet room. It feels strange to talk out loud, but it also feels right. You are acknowledging the hard work that went into every single seed in that bag. You walk away from the corner and go back to the warmth of the fire. You feel a deep peace in your mind. Your shells are not empty. Your barrels are not dry. You have everything you need to see the spring. The winter can howl and the snow can pile up as high as the trees, but you are ready. You are the watchman, and your stores are full. You sit back down in your chair and let the warmth of the hearth wash over you again, feeling the solid, heavy weight of the cabin around you. The world is hidden, but your life is well tended. As the afternoon turns into evening, the blue light from the snow outside begins to fade. The cabin starts to feel very dark again. The fire in the hearth gives off a beautiful orange glow, but it does not reach the far corners of the room. If you want to see your book or work on your tools, you need a different kind of light. You need a candle. In the big cities, people might buy candles made of beeswax, which smell like flowers and honey. But out here, in the deep woods, you have to make your own. You have to use what you have. You walk over to the side of the fireplace. Hanging there is a large iron pot. You reach for a heavy tin bucket that you keep in the cool part of the cabin. Inside this bucket is your tallow. Tallow is a simple word for animal fat that has been melted down and cleaned. When you prepared your meat in the autumn, you saved every scrap of fat. You boiled it in water, let it cool, and skimmed the white, hard cake off the top. This is the wax of the pioneer world. It is a dull, creamy white color and feels a bit like hard soap. You scoop some of the tallow into the iron pot and hang it over the fire. You used a crane, which is a swinging iron arm inside the fireplace. This allows you to move the pot closer to the heat or further away without burning yourself. You watch as the white chunks of fat begin to melt. They turn into a clear, golden liquid. As it heats up, a heavy, rich smell fills the cabin. It smells like roasted beef and old smoke. It is a very strong smell, and some people might find it a bit much, but to you, it smells like comfort. It smells like the work you did to prepare for the winter. While the tallow is melting, you prepare your wicks. A wick is the string in the middle of a candle that burns. For this, you use a special bit of microhistory, a length of twisted cotton or flax string. You have a long, thin wooden stick that you call a dipping rod. You tie 6 pieces of string to this rod, spaced out so they do not touch each other. Each string is about 8 inches long. You make sure the knots are tight. You feel the rough texture of the cotton between your fingers. It is clean and white, waiting to be turned into a light. There is a simple historical fact you remember as you work. A busy farm family might need to make 200 candles to get through a single winter. Since you are alone, you do not need that many, but you still need a good supply. Without these candles, your world would end at the edge of the fireplace. With them, you can carry a tiny piece of the sun with you wherever you go in the room. Making candles by hand is a very slow job. It is called dipping, and it takes a lot of patience. The tallow is ready now. It is hot and liquid. You take the pot off the crane and set it on the hearth. You sit down on a low stool. You take your dipping rod in your hand. You carefully lower the 6 strings into the hot, golden oil. You hear a tiny sizzle as the air leaves the string and the oil soaks in. You pull the rod up. The strings are now wet and shiny. You hold them over the pot for a moment to let the extra drops fall back in. Drip ... drip ... drip. The sound is very soft in the quiet cabin. Now, you must wait. You cannot dip them again right away. If you do, the hot oil will just melt off the first layer. You have to let the tallow cool and get hard. You hang the rod between 2 chairs in the cooler part of the room. You watch the strings. The clear oil begins to turn cloudy. Then it turns white. It happens very slowly, from the bottom up. You sit very still and watch the cooling process. The room is silent except for the soft breathing of the fire. You look at the tiny white fingers of tallow forming on the strings. This is a moment of deep reflection. You think about how much time it takes to make just a few minutes of light. In the world you came from, everything happened fast. But here, the winter has slowed everything down. You learn to appreciate the time it takes for things to grow. Layer by layer, the candle gets thicker. Layer by layer, your life in the cabin is built. You feel a sense of calm. There is no rush. You have nowhere to go. The snow has made sure of that. When the strings are cool and hard, you dip them again. You lower them into the pot, count to 3, and pull them up. Now, the candles are a little bit thicker. They look like thin white pencils. You hang them up to cool again. You repeat this over and over. You dip, you wait. You dip, you wait. Each time, The candle grows by just a tiny bit. It is like the way the snow is piling up outside one flake at a time, until it is a mountain. Your arms begin to feel a little tired from holding the rod, but it is a good kind of tired. You look at the pot of tallow. The liquid is getting lower. You can see the reflection of the fire in the golden oil. It looks like a small pool of light sitting on the floor. The smell of the fat is even stronger now, thick and warm. You imagine the candles you are making. Tomorrow, when you wake up in the dark, you will strike a spark, and one of these will guide you. They are your own handmade stars. After many dips, the candles are finally thick enough. They are about as wide as your thumb. They are not perfectly smooth like the ones from a shop. They have little bumps and ridges. They are a bit yellowish white. You take a small knife and trim the bottom of each candle so they are flat. The bits you cut off go right back into the pot to be used again. Nothing is wasted here. You feel the waxy, smooth texture of the finished tallow. It is slightly soft, and it leaves a little bit of oil on your skin. You take one of the new candles and put it into your candle holder. Your holder is made of heavy green glass, shaped like a small bell with a handle. You bring it close to the fire. You take a small splinter of wood and light it from the glowing coals. You bring the flame to the wick of your new candle. The cotton catches fire. At first, the flame is very small and blue. Then, it finds the tallow. It grows into a bright, steady yellow flame. You stand back and look at your work. The light from the candle is different from the firelight. The firelight is wild and moving, jumping all over the walls. But the candle light is steady. It is a small, quiet point of light. It smells a bit like a kitchen, but it is a clean smell. You move the candle holder to your table. The light shows you the grain of the wood. It shows you the marks on your hands. It makes the cabin feel like a different place. The shadows are pushed back just a little bit further. You feel a great sense of peace. You have made something useful. You have turned the fat from an animal and a piece of string into a way to see in the dark. It makes you feel like you are winning against the winter. The snow can hide the sun, but it cannot hide your light. You look at the other 5 candles hanging on the rod. They are your promise for the nights to come. You will have light for reading. You will have light for writing. You will have light for thinking. You sit down and watch the candle burn. The flame is very still. It does not flicker because there is no wind in the buried cabin. It just sits there, a tiny golden leaf in the middle of the room. You feel the warmth of the cabin and the safety of the walls. The watch continues, and now you have a light to keep you company. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the soft yellow glow press against your eyelids, feeling the slow and steady pulse of the night. The deep silence of the morning does not last forever. As the afternoon passes, you begin to hear a new sound. At first, it is very soft. It is a low, thin whistle, like someone blowing across the top of an empty glass bottle. You sit very still in your chair and tilt your head to listen. The sound is coming from the top of the chimney. Then you hear it again, but this time it is louder. It is a long, mournful hoo-oh-oh-oh that rises and falls. The wind has returned. Even though you are buried under the snow, the wind can still find you. It moves across the top of the white drifts, searching for any little gap it can find. The wind begins to grow stronger. It is no longer a whistle. Now it is a growl. It sounds like a big dog or a wolf pressing its shoulder against the outside of your cabin. You can hear the wind rubbing against the logs. It makes a dry, scratching sound. It feels as if the forest itself is trying to wake you up. You look at the heavy door. You can see the latch string moving just a tiny bit. The air pressure from the storm outside is so strong that it is trying to push its way through the keyhole and the cracks. You get up and walk to the door. You can feel a thin, sharp line of cold air hitting your ankles. It feels like a needle made of ice. To stop this, You reach for a special item you made back in the autumn. This is a draft snake. It is a piece of micro-history that almost every cabin dweller knew well. A draft snake is a long tube of heavy cloth, usually made from an old trouser leg or a scrap of canvas. You have filled it with dry sand and sewn the ends shut. It is heavy and floppy, like a real snake. You lay it down along the bottom of the door. The weight of the sand helps the cloth squeeze into the gap. Immediately, the whistling at your feet stops. The room feels a little bit warmer already. There is a simple historical fact about these old cabins. Because they were made of wood, they would actually sing in the wind. The logs act like the body of a giant guitar or a drum. When the wind hits the cabin, the wood vibrates. You can put your ear against the wall and feel a low thrum deep inside the timber. It is the sound of the trees remembering the storms they lived through before you cut them down. The cabin is not just a box. It is a living thing that moves and speaks when the weather turns. The wind howls louder now. It sounds like it is screaming through the trees. You know that out on the open plains, the wind can move so fast that it picks up the snow and turns the world into a whiteout. This is when you cannot see your own hand in front of your face. But here, in the woods, the trees break the wind. They act like a giant fence. Still, the wind is powerful. You hear a loud thump on the roof. It is a branch from the big oak tree nearby. The wind has snapped it off and tossed it onto your shingles. The sound is muffled by the thick snow, but you still feel it in the floorboards. You walk back to the fire. The wind is doing something strange to the flames. When a big gust of wind moves over the top of the chimney, it creates a pull. The flames in the hearth suddenly jump up. They turn a bright, angry yellow and reach for the soot on the back wall. Then, when the wind stops for a second, the flames sink back down and turn a sleepy orange. You watch this dance for a long time. It is like the fire is breathing along with the storm. You decide to spend a moment in silence, just feeling the power of the night. The cabin creaks, creak, pop. The wood is shrinking because the air is getting even colder. You can hear the moan of the ceiling beams. It is a lonely sound, but it is also a safe sound. You know that these logs are notched together with dovetail joints. These are notches shaped like the tail of a bird. The more the wind pushes on the walls, the tighter those joints pull together. The storm is actually making your house stronger. You feel a sense of respect for the people who figured out how to build like this. They knew the wind would come. They knew the snow would fall, and they built a place that could stand up to it all. The sound of the wind changes again. Now it sounds like the ocean. It is a constant roaring sound that fills your ears. You imagine the millions of snowflakes being whipped around outside. They are hitting the top of your chimney and melting in the heat of the fire. You can hear a tiny hiss 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 as the water drops hit the hot stones. It is a very small sound, but in the middle of the roar, it is very clear. You think about the birds that are huddling in the thick pine branches right now. You think about the deer standing still in the lee of a hill. Everyone is hiding from the wind. You pick up a small piece of wood and whittle it with your knife, just to have something to do with your hands. The shavings fall onto the floor like curls of butter. The wind makes the cabin feel like it is moving, even though you know it is solid. It is like being on a ship in the middle of a dark sea. The waves of wind are crashing against your wooden hull, but your hull is thick. Your hull is warm. You have your draft snake at the door and your fire in the hearth. You think about how the wind sounds different at night. In the day, it is just noise, but at night, your brain starts to turn the sounds into stories. The whistle sounds like a voice. The roar sounds like a giant's footsteps. You have to remind yourself that it is just moving air. It is just the world changing its clothes for the winter. You take a deep breath and smell the dust and the wood smoke. The wind cannot get in. It can scream and shout all it wants. but it has to stay outside in the cold. The wind begins to settle down after an hour or two. The roar turns back into a growl, and then back into a whistle. The cabin stops creaking so much. The thrum in the walls fades away. The world is becoming quiet again, but it is a different kind of quiet than before. It is a tired quiet. The storm has spent its energy, and now it is moving on to the next valley. You feel the tension of your shoulders. You didn't even realize you were holding your breath. You look at the candle on your table. During the worst of the wind, the flame was flickering and dancing, even though there are no windows open. The wind was so strong it was pulling air through the tiny pores of the wood. But now, the flame is steady again. It is a straight, golden needle. You feel a deep sense of peace. You have survived another little battle with the winter. The wind tried to get in, but you and your cabin were too clever for it. You lean back and close your eyes. The low whistle at the chimney is almost like a lullaby now. It is a soft, gentle sound that tells you the world is still there. You are the watchman of the night, and you have listened to the song of the wind. You know its voice now. You know its tricks. You are tucked away in your wooden nest, and the night is moving on. The snow is still there. The dark is still there, but you are warm, and you are safe. You listen to the last few whispers of the wind as you drift closer to sleep, feeling the solid weight of the logs around you like a giant, protective hand. You sit back in your wooden chair and stretch your legs out toward the fire. The warmth feels good on your shins, but you notice something. There is a small, cold spot on the tip of your big toe. You lift your foot and look closely in the firelight. There it is. A small, ragged hole has opened up in the toe of your grey woolen sock. In a place like this, a hole in your sock is not a small thing. When the world is buried under feet of snow and the wind is freezing, your clothes are your armor. You must keep them in good shape. If you let a small hole go, it will soon become a big hole, and then the cold will find its way to your skin. You reach down and pull the sock off your foot. The floorboards feel like ice against your bare skin, so you quickly tuck your foot under your other leg to keep it warm. You walk over to a small basket sitting on a shelf. This is your mending basket. It is full of little bits of string, scraps of cloth, and balls of yarn. You bring the basket back to your chair by the fire. You need to see what you are doing, so you pull your candle closer. The flame is small and steady, casting a long, thin shadow of your head against the log wall. You reach into the basket and pull out a very special tool. This is a darning egg. It is a piece of micro-history that almost every person in a cabin would own. It is a smooth, heavy piece of wood shaped exactly like a large egg from a hen. It has no sharp edges. It has been polished by years of use until it feels as soft as silk. You slide the darning egg inside the toe of your sock. The wood stretches the woolen fabric just enough so that the hole stays open and flat. It gives you a hard surface to work against. Without this little wooden egg, it would be very hard to sew the hole without accidentally sewing the two sides of the sock together. Next, you look for your needle. You do not have a thin metal needle like the ones in a big city shop. Instead, you have a needle made of bone. Long ago, you carved this needle from a small splinter of a deer's leg bone. You rubbed it against a flat stone for hours until it was smooth and sharp. Bone needles are wonderful because they are strong and they do not rust in the damp air of a cabin. You pick up a length of grey yarn that matches the color of your sock. You hold the bone needle up to the candlelight. Your fingers feel a bit stiff from the cold, so you take a moment to rub them together. You must be very patient to get the thick yarn through the tiny hole, or the eye, of the needle. You lick the end of the yarn and pinch it tight. You guide it toward the needle. You miss the first time. You take a deep breath and try again. This time, the yarn slides through. You pull a long tail of thread and tie a small knot at the end. Now, you are ready to begin the work. This work is called darning. It is a very simple way of fixing a hole by weaving new threads across the gap. It is not like regular sewing, where you just pull two pieces of cloth together. When you darn, you are actually building new cloth where the old cloth has worn away. There is a simple historical fact that you think about as you work. In the 1800s, wool was so precious that people called it white gold. It took a very long time to make a pair of socks. First, someone had to shear the wool from a sheep. Then, the wool had to be washed and combed. Then, it had to be spun into yarn on a spinning wheel. Finally, someone had to knit the socks by hand using long needles. A single pair of thick winter socks could take 20 or 30 hours of hard work to finish. Because they took so much time to make, you never throw them away. You fix them until there is more mended yarn than original wool. You push the bone needle into the thick wool near the edge of the hole. Scritch. You can hear the sound of the needle moving through the dry fibers. You pull the yarn through and then push the needle back the other way. You are making a row of long, straight stitches that go across the hole from left to right. You work slowly and carefully. You make sure the stitches are close together, like the strings on a harp. As you work, you smell something familiar. It is the smell of the wool. Even though these socks have been worn many times, they still have a faint scent of the sheep they came from. It is a dusty, oily smell called lanolin. Lanolin is a natural oil that sheep make to keep their wool waterproof. It feels a bit waxy on your fingers. This oil is good for your skin. It keeps your hands from cracking in the dry winter air. You think about the sheep standing in a green field under a summer sun. It feels like a dream now. While you are buried under the white snow, you finish the first set of stitches. Now, the hole is covered by a row of parallel lines, but you are not done yet. Now, you must turn the sock and weave your needle over and under those lines. This is the part that takes the most focus. You push the needle over the first thread, under the second, over the third. Then you come back the other way, doing the opposite. Under, over, under. You are creating a tiny, strong square of new fabric. You stop for a moment of atmospheric silence. The only sound in the room is the crackle of a log in the hearth and the ticking of the cooling embers. You look at the wall. The shadow of your hands and the bone needle is huge. It looks like a giant bird pecking at a mountain. You watch the shadow move in time with your breathing. You feel very small in this big, dark woods, but you'll also feel very peaceful. The needle goes in. The needle comes out. The hole is slowly disappearing. You feel a sense of pride as you look at your work. The new patch is thick and strong. It will be even warmer than the rest of the sock. You think about how many times you have sat like this. You have fixed your trousers. You have fixed your coat. You have fixed the blankets on your bed. In the night shift of the winter, mending is a way of staying busy. It keeps your mind from wandering too far into the lonely dark. It gives your hands something to do, while your ears listen to the wind. Finally, you reach the end of the hole. You pull the last stitch tight and tie a small, neat knot. You take your sharp knife from your belt and snip the yarn close to the knot. You slide the wooden darning egg out of the sock. You put the sock back on your foot. It feels wonderful. The cold spot on your toe is gone. The thick wool feels snug and soft against your skin. You wiggle your toes and feel the new patch pressing against your boot. It is a good, solid feeling. You put the darning egg and the bone needle back into the basket. You blow on your fingers to warm them up. You feel like a clever person. You have taken a broken thing and made it whole again. You have used your own hands and a piece of a deer's bone to fight back against the winter. You lean back in your chair and look at the fire. The light is getting a bit lower, but you are not worried. You have your warm socks, your warm fire, and your strong walls. The watch goes on, and you are ready for whatever the night brings. You feel the weight of sleep starting to pull at your eyes, but for now, you just enjoy the feeling of your warm, mended toes near the glowing logs. You lean your head back against the smooth wood of your chair. The fire is still a bright, warm companion in the corner, but your eyes are starting to grow heavy. As you watch the flames dance and swirl, the orange light begins to look like something else. It looks like the hot, golden sun of a July afternoon. You close your eyes, and for a moment, the sound of the crackling wood turns into a different sound. It turns into the creak groan of a heavy wooden wagon moving slowly over a dry dirt path. In your mind, you are no longer buried under the cold, white snow. You are back on the trail. You remember the day you started your journey to this lonely place. It was months and months ago. You had packed everything you owned into a big wagon. Many people call these Conestoga wagons. They are very large, with a curved bottom that looks a bit like a boat. This shape is very clever because it keeps your boxes and bags from sliding around when the wagon goes up or down a steep hill. Over the top, there were big wooden hoops covered in heavy white cloth. When the sun shone through that cloth, the inside of the wagon felt like a warm, glowing tent. You remember the heat of that summer. It was a thick, heavy heat that made your shirt stick to your back. The air did not smell like wood smoke and cold pine then. It smelled like dry grass, hot leather, and the dusty coat of the oxen pulling the load. You spent every day walking beside the heavy wooden wheels. You can still feel the way the fine, red dust felt between your toes. It was so thick that every time the oxen took a step, a little cloud of dust would rise up and coat your trousers in a layer of brown powder. There is a simple historical fact about these long trips. Most wagons could only travel about 15 miles in a whole day. If you think about it, that is a very slow way to move. A fast runner could go that far in just a couple of hours, but with a heavy wagon full of grain, tools, and furniture, you had to move at the speed of a slow walk. You didn't mind the slowness then. The world felt huge and full of new things to see. Every mile brought you closer to the dream of your own cabin in the woods. You remember a very specific piece of micro-history that hung from the back of your wagon. It was a small, heavy bucket made of iron or wood, and it was called a tar bucket. Inside this bucket was a thick, black, sticky mess made of pine tar and animal fat. This was the grease for your wagon. Every few days, you had to stop the oxen and use a flat piece of wood to smear that black tar onto the ends of the big wooden axles where the wheels turned. If you didn't do this, the wood would rub against wood until it got so hot it might catch fire. The smell of that tar was very strong, sharp and bitter, like burnt pine needles. You can almost smell it now as you sit by your hearth. The sound of the wagon was constant. It was a clack-clack, clack-clack of the wooden spokes moving in their hubs. Sometimes, a wheel would hit a stone in the road, and the whole wagon would shudder and bang. You had to be very careful with your glass jars and your precious clock. You wrapped them in your thickest woolen blankets to keep them from breaking. Those are the same blankets that are on your bed right now, keeping you safe from the winter. They have traveled a long way to be here with you. You take a moment of atmospheric silence. In the quiet of the cabin, you compare that memory to your life right now. Back then, there was so much noise. There was the shouting of other travelers, the lowing of the tired oxen, and the constant wind blowing across the open plains. Now, everything is silent. The snow has stopped all the noise. The world has gone from a bright, dusty yellow to a deep, frozen blue. It is strange to think that you are the same person who walked those thousands of miles. You feel older now, but also stronger. You have found your place. You remember the way the campfire looked at night during the trip. You would sit on the ground and look up at the stars. Back then, the stars looked like millions of tiny diamonds scattered on black velvet. There were no trees to block your view. Here in the woods, the trees are like tall guards, and the snow has hidden the sky. But in your mind, you can still see that big, open horizon. You remember the feeling of being very small under such a giant sky. It is the same feeling you have now, buried under the snow. The world is big, and you are just a small spark in the middle of it. You think about the people you saw on the trail. There were families with small children, and old men with white beards. Everyone was looking for something. Some wanted gold, some wanted better land, and some just wanted to be free. You wanted a place that was yours. You wanted to build something with your own two hands. You think about the day you finally reached this spot. The sun was setting, and the light was hitting the tall pine trees, making them look like they were tipped with gold. You knew then that you had found your home. The creak of a log in the fire brings you back to the present. You open your eyes and see the dark logs of your cabin walls. The memory of the dusty trail fades away, leaving only a soft feeling in your chest. You are glad the journey is over. You are glad you don't have to walk in the heat anymore. Even though it is freezing outside and you are trapped under the snow, you are exactly where you wanted to be. Your wagon has been turned into parts for your shed. Your oxen are safe and warm in the small barn you built. You feel a deep sense of peace. The long, dusty path was hard, but it led you to this warm hearth. Every mile you walked, every bucket of tar you smeared on the wheels, and every night you slept on the hard ground was worth it. You are the watchman of this cabin, because you earned the right to be here. You look at your boots sitting by the fire. They are the same boots that walked through the red dust. Now they are covered in a little bit of melted snow. They have seen the whole world change from summer to winter. You lean forward and poke the fire one last time. A few sparks fly up, looking like the tiny campfire stars you remember from the trail. You feel the weight of the cabin around you. It is solid. It is real. You are no longer moving. You have arrived. The watch is quiet tonight, and the memories of the road are like an old song that helps you feel at home. You sink back into your chair, let your breathing slow down, and feel the deep, heavy warmth of the logs protecting you from the frozen world outside. The journey is done, and the rest has begun. You sit very still in your wooden chair. The fire has burned down to a soft, glowing bed of red coals. It is the middle of the night, or perhaps it is the early morning. It is hard to tell when you are living under the snow. You have been awake for a while, just listening. The wind from yesterday has completely died away. Now, there is a different kind of quiet. It is a deep quiet that feels like it has a weight to it. It is the silence of the frozen woods. Even though you are inside your cabin, you can feel the stillness of the trees outside. They are standing like frozen statues in the dark. There is a simple historical fact that you think about. During the coldest months, trees go into a very deep sleep called dormancy. It is like they are holding their breath. The sap inside them moves very slowly, almost stopping completely. If the sap moved fast like it does in the summer, the water inside would freeze and burst the bark of the tree. But the trees are clever. They know how to wait. They are sleeping, just like the bears in the caves and the frogs under the mud of the frozen pond. You reach out and touch the log wall next to your shoulder. The wood is freezing cold, even though the fire is only a few feet away. You can feel the rough texture of the bark and the hard, dry mud of the chinking. This wall is all that stands between you and the great, white silence. You imagine the woods stretching out for hundreds of miles in every direction. Every branch is covered in a sleeve of ice. Every needle on the pine trees is stiff and sharp. The world has turned into a giant palace of glass and snow. In this deep quiet, you can hear the house speak more clearly. Every now and then, you hear a loud crack. from the woods outside. It sounds like a gunshot. You know what that is? It is the sound of a tree trunk splitting just a little bit because of the frost. The cold is so strong that it can snap thick wood like a dry twig. It is a lonely sound, but it reminds you that the woods are still there. They are just fighting their own battle with the winter. You decide to stand up and move around a little bit. Your legs feel a bit stiff. You walk over to the corner where you keep your winter gear. Leaning against the wall is a very special piece of microhistory. These are your snowshoes. Some people in the old days call them winter shoes or web feet. They are made from a single piece of ash wood that has been steamed and bent into a long, oval shape. Inside the wooden frame, there is a beautiful web of thin leather strips. This leather is called rawhide. It is made from the skin of a deer or a cow that has not been turned into soft leather yet. You run your fingers over the rawhide webbing. It is dry and tight, like the strings of a drum. These snowshoes are what allow you to walk on top of the snow instead of sinking down to your waist. Without them, you would be a prisoner in your own home. They are a clever tool that people learn to make by watching how animals, like the lynx, have big paws to stay on top of the drifts. You look at the dark wood and the cream-colored leather. It is a beautiful thing, made by hand with nothing but a knife and a bit of steam. You walk back to the center of the room and stand perfectly still. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. You do not move. You do not breathe deeply. You just listen to the nothingness. It is so quiet that you can almost hear the hum of the earth. It is a very low sound, a vibration that you feel in your bones, rather than hear with your ears. It is the sound of the world resting. You feel a sense of peace that you can only find in a place this isolated. There are no clocks ticking. There are no people talking. There is only you and the frozen dark. You look at the ceiling beams. They are dark and heavy. You think about the night shift you are working. You are the watchman of this silence. While the world is sleeping under the ice, you are awake to witness it. You feel like a guardian. You are making sure the fire stays alive. You are making sure the cabin stays strong. You are the heartbeat of this little piece of the forest. You think about the animals outside. You know that the squirrels are tucked away in the hollows of the trees, curled into tight furry balls. You know the owls are sitting high up in the pines, their feathers puffed out to trap the warmth. Everything is surviving in its own way. You feel a connection to them. You are all part of the same story. You are all waiting for the sun to come back, but for now, you are all masters of the quiet. The silence makes your thoughts feel very clear. You don't think about the big problems of the world. You think about small, important things. You think about the texture of your woolen blankets. You think about the way the light from the coals looks like a sunset. You think about the smell of the pine wood. Life becomes very simple when the world is frozen. It is just about staying warm, staying fed, and staying quiet. You reach for your iron poker and gently stir the red coals. A small glow of light fills the room. It shows you the frost on the window once again. The frost has grown thicker during the night. It now looks like a forest of tiny silver trees growing right on the glass. You think about how the cold can make such pretty things. It is a hard beauty, but it is still beauty. You feel a bit of a chill in the air, so you put on your heavy coat. It is made of thick, dark wool. It feels heavy on your shoulders, like a protective shell. You sit back down in your chair and wrap a blanket around your legs. You are not going back to sleep yet. You want to stay awake for a little longer. You want to be the one who listens to the woods while they dream. You think about the term the dead of winter. People used that phrase for a long time. But as you sit here, you realize that the winter is not dead. It is just very, very still. There is a lot of life hidden under that white blanket. There are seeds waiting in the dirt. There are insects sleeping in the bark. And there is you, sitting in your chair, keeping the watch. You feel a deep sense of respect for the winter. It is strong and it is cold, but it is also a time for resting and getting ready for the spring. The deep quiet of the woods is like a blanket for your mind. It stops you from worrying. It makes the world feel safe. You know that nothing can bother you here. The snow has closed the doors to the rest of the world. You are in your own little universe, made of logs and stone and fire. You let out a long, slow breath and watch it turn into a tiny cloud of mist. You are alive. You are warm. You are part of the frozen woods. The watch continues in the silence. You lean your head to the side and look at the shadows of the snowshoes on the wall. They look like giant wings. You feel a wave of calm wash over you. The night is long and the ice is thick, but you are the watchman and you are not afraid of the quiet. You listen to the heartbeat of the cabin and the silence of the trees, waiting for the first hint of the grey morning to touch the roof. You wake up with a very special thought in your mind. You have lost track of the exact days, but you have been marking them with a small knife on the side of your wooden table. Each little notch is one day spent under the snow. By your count, Christmas is only a few days away. Even though you are all alone in this buried cabin, you want to make the day feel different from the others. You want to bring a little bit of life into this world of brown logs and grey stones. You decide that today is the day you will bring in your tree. A few weeks ago, before the big snow started, you went out into the woods with your sharp axe. You looked for a long time until you found the perfect little tree. It is a tiny balsam fir, only about 3 feet tall. You chose it because it was strong and had a very beautiful shape, like a green triangle. You cut it down and kept it in the small, cold porch area near your front door. The porch is not as warm as the cabin, so the tree has stayed frozen and fresh, as if it was still standing in the forest. You walk to the door and pull back the heavy wooden bar. You move into the small porch. It is very cold here, and you can see the frost on the walls. You find the tree leaning in the corner. It is covered in a light dusting of snow that has blown in through the cracks. You reach out and grab the trunk. The bark is rough and cold. You lift it up and carry it back into the warm main room of the cabin. As soon as the tree enters the warmth of the fire, something wonderful happens. The heat starts to melt the tiny bits of ice on the needles. The needles begin to wake up. A thick, sweet smell fills the air. It is the scent of the deep wood, sharp, clean, and fresh. It smells like the mountains and the cold wind. It is a much better smell than the dusty scent of the cabin or the heavy smell of the tallow candles. It makes you close your eyes and take a deep breath. You feel like the forest has come inside to visit you. You move to your workbench. You need a way to make the tree stand up straight. You reach for a piece of micro-history, a hewn wooden block. To hewn something means to cut it into shape using a heavy axe or an adze. You took a thick piece of an old oak log and chopped the sides until they were flat and square. In the very center, you used a tool called an auger, which is a big hand drill to make a deep, round hole. This hole is just wide enough for the trunk of your little tree. You lift the tree and push the bottom of the trunk into the hole in the oak block. It is a tight fit, which is good. You give it a little tap with a wooden mallet to make sure it is steady. Now, the tree stands tall and proud on its own. You pick up the block and the tree and carry them to the corner of the room, right next to the window. Even though the window is covered in snow, you like the idea of the tree being near the glass. There is a simple historical fact that you think about as you adjust the branches. In the middle of the 1800s, many people did not have Christmas trees in their homes. The tradition was brought to the New World by people coming from Germany. For a long time, only a few families did it. But as the years went by, more and more people liked the idea of bringing a green tree inside during the darkest part of the year. It was a way to remember that the green world was still alive under the snow, and would come back in the spring. You spend some time pulling on the branches to make them look nice. Your fingers start to feel very sticky. This is because of the sap, or resin, coming out of the tree. The sap is like the blood of the tree, and in a balsam fir, it is very thick and clear. It smells like citrus and pine. It is so sticky that it is hard to pull your fingers apart. You don't mind, though. You like the feeling. It reminds you that the tree is real and full of life. You use a little bit of warm fat from your cooking pot later to clean the sap off your hands, as the oil helps the stickiness slide away. You step back and look at your tree. It is a very deep, dark green. Against the brown logs of your walls, the green looks almost like it is glowing. The needles are short and soft, not prickly like a spruce tree. You reach out and run your hand over a branch. It feels cool and springy. You think about how strange it must look, a tiny piece of the forest standing in the middle of your home. The firelight catches the needles. Because the needles are still a little bit wet from the melting ice, they sparkle like they are covered in tiny diamonds. The shadows of the branches stretch out across the floorboards. They look like long, dark fingers reaching toward the hearth. You decide to move one of your candles closer to the tree. The yellow flame makes the green needles look even richer. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. You sit in your chair and just look at the tree. You do not think about your chores. You do not think about the snow outside. You just watch the way the light moves through the branches. The cabin is very quiet, but it no longer feels empty. The tree is a living thing, and having it there makes you feel less alone. You imagine the millions of other trees outside, buried in the dark, and you feel glad that this one is here with you, in the light. You think about how simple this celebration is. In a big city, people might have shiny glass balls or fancy ribbons for their trees, but you only have the tree itself. You realize that you don't really need anything else. The tree is beautiful just the way it is. Its color is the only decoration you need. It is a promise that the winter will not last forever. You lean forward and pick up a stray needle that has fallen onto the floor. You press it between your thumb and finger. It snaps with a tiny sound and releases one last burst of that wonderful forest smell. You feel a sense of peace and a little bit of excitement. Christmas is coming, and your cabin is ready. You have brought the outside in, and the green needles are a sign of hope in the middle of the white winter. The watch is quiet, and the scent of the pine is your companion. You watch the firelight dance on the green branches and feel a deep, warm comfort in your heart. The tree is a small thing, but it has changed the whole feeling of your home. You are no longer just surviving. You are celebrating. You sink back into your chair. Let the smell of the balsam fill your lungs, and watch the shadows of the needles flicker against the logs. You sit on your low wooden stool near the little balsam fir. The green branches are beautiful on their own, but you want to make them look a bit more festive for the holiday. You don't have any shopboard decorations, so you have to look into your food bags and your mending basket to find things that can be turned into ornaments. You bring a small wooden bowl and a needle and thread over to the hearth. This is a time for quiet work, using small things to make something big and pretty. You reach into a small burlap sack and pull out a handful of dried cranberries. You gathered these from the boggy edge of the woods back in the autumn. When they were fresh, they were bright red and firm, but now they are a bit shrunken and dark, like tiny rubies made of leather. Next, you take out a small bag of popcorn. This is a special kind of corn with hard, yellow kernels. You put a bit of fat into your iron spider skillet and drop the kernels in. You hold the pan over the hot coals and shake it gently. Scritch, scratch, scritch, scratch. After a minute, you hear a loud pop, and then a pop, 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 like a tiny battle is happening in the pan. Soon, the pan is full of white, fluffy clouds of corn. The smell is wonderful, salty and toasty. You pour the popcorn into a bowl and let it cool. Now you are ready to make your strings. You take a long piece of white cotton thread from your mending basket. You use your bone needle again, the one you used to fix your socks. You push the needle through a white piece of popcorn, then through a red cranberry, then through another popcorn. You repeat this over and over. It is a slow job. The popcorn is very delicate and can snap if you are not careful. The cranberries are tough and make a little thump sound as the needle goes through their skin. There is a simple historical fact that you think about as you work. Many years ago, people used popcorn for decorations because it was cheap and it looked like tiny balls of snow that would never melt. In a cabin where everything is brown and grey, these strings of white and red are the brightest things in the room. You watch the pile of garland grow in your lap. A garland is just a long string or chain used for decoration. It looks like a long, colourful snake made of food. You feel a sense of satisfaction as the red and white pattern repeats perfectly, yard after yard. You decide to make something else to hang on the branches. You reach for some dried corn husks. These are the papery leaves that grow around an ear of corn. They are a pale, sandy colour and feel like thin wood or heavy paper. This is a clever piece of microhistory. A corn husk doll. You take a few husks and soak them in a bit of warm water to make them soft. Then, you fold and tie them with bits of string to make a small figure. You don't give it a face, as that is the tradition. It just has a round head, 2 arms, and a long skirt. It is a simple, humble little thing, but it looks charming and feels like it belongs in a log cabin. You stand up and walk over to the tree. The light from your tallow candle makes the green needles look deep and dark. You begin to wrap your garland around the branches. You start at the top and go around and around, moving down toward the floor. The white popcorn looks like a dusting of fresh snow, and the red berries look like tiny drops of winter sun. You hang your corn husk doll on a sturdy branch near the middle. You also find a few pine cones in your wood box. You tie loops of string to them and hang them up too. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. The cabin is perfectly still. You can hear the tiny tink-tink of the popcorn hitting the needles as you move the garland. You step back and look at your work. The tree is no longer just a piece of the woods. It is a Christmas tree. The colors are simple, but they change the whole room. The red and white stand out against the dark green needles. It looks cheerful and warm. You feel a little lump of happiness in your chest, even though no one else will see this tree. It matters to you. It is a way of telling the winter that you are still full of life and joy. You notice that the scent of the balsam fir is mixing with the smell of the toasted popcorn. It is a lovely, cozy smell. It reminds you of being a child and sitting in a kitchen full of people. You realize that you are creating your own traditions here. You are making your own world inside this snowy mountain. You don't need expensive things to have a beautiful Christmas. You just need a bit of imagination and the things the land has given you. You pick up a piece of popcorn that fell on the floor and eat it. It is crunchy and a bit dry, but it tastes like the summer sun. You think about how every part of this tree came from your own work. You cut the tree, you grew the corn, you picked the berries, and you saved the husks. This decoration is a celebration of your own hands and your own hard work. It makes the tree feel very personal. It is your tree, in your home, in your woods. You move your chair so you can sit and look at the tree properly. The candle on the table casts long, soft shadows of the garland against the logs. The shadows look like a net of light and dark. You feel very safe and very tucked away. The snow outside is still piling up, and the wind is silent for now. You are in a secret place, a hidden jewel under the white blanket of the earth. You reach out and touch one of the red cranberries. It is cold and smooth. You think about the seasons passing. The berries grew in the spring, ripened in the summer, were picked in the autumn and are now decorated in the winter. It is a full circle. You feel a deep connection to the timing of the world. You are not just waiting for the winter to end. You are living in it. And you are finding the beauty in the middle of the cold. The watch is quiet tonight, and the tree is a glowing friend in the corner. You let the warmth of the fire and the sight of your simple decorations fill you with a quiet peace. You are ready for the holiday. You have your fire, your food, and your beautiful, simple tree. You lean your head back and watch the way the firelight makes the red berries look like they are glowing from within. The night is deep, but your heart is light. You sit very still in your wooden chair. The little balsam for tree is standing in the corner, and the heat from the hearth is doing something wonderful. As the cabin gets warmer, the tree begins to breathe. You can smell it. It is a deep, rich scent that fills every corner of the room. It is the scent of the forest, brought inside to live with you. It is sharp and clean, like the cold wind on the mountain, but it is also sweet and heavy. You close your eyes and let the smell wash over you. It feels like the walls of the cabin have disappeared, and you are standing in the middle of a great green woods. The scent of the pine needles is very different from the other smells in your home. Usually, the cabin smells of dry wood, old wool, and the faint, salty scent of the meat hanging from the rafters. It also smells like the wood smoke from your fire. The smoke has a grey, dusty smell that gets into everything. It gets into your clothes and your hair. But now, the fresh pine is winning. The two smells are mixing together. The sharp pine and the soft smoke dance in the air. It is a very cozy combination. It makes you feel like you are tucked away in a safe, hidden nest. There is a simple historical fact that you think about as you breathe in the forest air. In the 1800s, many people believed that the smell of evergreen trees was good medicine for the body. They thought that the fresh scent could clean the air and stop people from getting sick with coughs or fevers. They didn't know about germs back then, but they knew that breathing in the scent of a pine forest made them feel strong and clear-headed. So, bringing a tree inside was not just for Christmas. It was a way to keep the heavy air of a closed-up cabin feeling light and healthy during the long months of winter. You look at the tree and see a small, sticky drop of clear liquid on one of the branches. This is the resin. You reach out and touch it with the tip of your finger. It is very thick, like honey that has been kept in the cold. This resin is a special piece of microhistory. Some people called it pine pitch or forest glue. It is the tree's way of healing itself. If a bug bites the tree or a branch snaps, the resin flows out to seal the wound. You lean in close to the drop of resin and sniff. The smell is 10 times stronger here. It is so sharp it almost makes your eyes water. It smells like life and strength. You decide to make the scent even stronger. You take a small iron pot and fill it with a little bit of water from your bucket. You drop a few handfuls of fallen pine needles and a small chunk of that sticky resin into the water. You set the pot on the edge of the hearth, where it is warm but not boiling. This is your own version of a simmering pot. As the water gets hot, it turns into steam. The steam carries the oils from the needles into the air. Soon, the whole cabin is filled with a thick, misty scent. It is like a warm hug for your nose. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. The only sound is the tiny hiss of the steam rising from the pot. You watch the white mist curl and disappear into the rafters. You feel a deep sense of calm. The world outside is a frozen desert of white snow and black shadows, but inside, you have created a summer forest. The green smell makes you forget about the cold. It makes you forget about the miles of snow between you and the next house. You feel like the watchman of a secret garden. You think about the trees outside. They are standing in the dark, their branches heavy with ice. They are silent and still, but your tree is warm. It is giving off its scent as a gift to you. You feel a sense of gratitude toward the little fir. It has given up its life in the woods to bring beauty and health into your home. You run your hand over the soft needles again. They feel cool and springy. You notice that the resin on your finger has started to dry. It feels like a small, hard shield on your skin. The smell brings back memories. It reminds you of the first day you walked into these woods. You remember the sound of the wind in the high branches and the way the sunlight fell in long, golden bars on the mossy ground. You remember the hope you felt that day. Now, that hope is still here, tucked into the logs of your walls and the scent of your tree. You realize that you are never truly alone as long as you have the things of the earth around you. The wood, the stone, the water, and the pine, they are all your friends. You move your chair a little closer to the simmering pot. The warmth and the scent make you feel a bit sleepy. It is a good kind of sleepiness, the kind you get after a long day of work. You look at the way the firelight shines through the steam. It makes the mist look like glowing gold dust. You watch a tiny spark from the fire fly up and vanish into the steam. It is a beautiful, quiet moment. You think about the long night shift of the winter. Sometimes the dark can feel very big and heavy, but simple things, like the smell of a tree, can push that weight away. It is like a light for your nose. It tells you that the world is still green. It tells you that the spring is waiting under the snow. You take one more deep breath, filling your lungs with the clean, sharp scent. It feels like it reaches all the way down to your toes. You look at the shadows of the needles on the wall. They are moving gently in the heat of the fire. They look like the waving arms of a dancer. The cabin feels very full tonight. It is full of scent, full of warmth, and full of peace. You are the guardian of this little world, and you are doing a good job. You have made a place where life can stay warm and happy. Even when the rest of the world is frozen solid, you lean back and let your head rest against the chair. The scent of the forest is like a soft blanket over your mind. You listen to the quiet, steady pulse of the fire and the tiny glug-glug of the water in the pot. You are safe. You are warm. You are tucked into the heart of the winter, and the scent of the pine is your constant, faithful companion. The watch continues, and the night is full of the sweet, fresh smell of the deep, green woods. You sit back in your chair and feel the hunger starting to stir in your belly. The sun has long since hidden behind the wall of snow, and the cabin is wrapped in the deep, blue dark of a winter evening. It is time to think about supper. In a place like this, supper is the best part of the day. It is the reward for all the wood you have chopped and all the snow you have moved. You walk over to your storage corner and look at your bags. Tonight, you want something heavy and warm. You reach for the bag of dried navy beans. You take a handful of the beans and let them spill into a wooden bowl. They make a sharp click-clack sound, like little pebbles hitting the wood. These beans are small, white, and very hard. You cannot just cook them and eat them right away. If you did, they would be like eating gravel. You have to soak them in a pot of water for many hours until they swell up and get soft. You did this earlier in the day, and now the beans are plump and ready for the fire. You drain the water and put the beans into your big, black iron pot. Next, you go to your salt pork barrel. You lift the heavy lid, and the smell of the salty brine fills the room. You use a long wooden fork to pull out a thick piece of meat. This is a special piece of microhistory, a slab of salt-cured pork. It is mostly white fat with just a few streaks of pink meat. In the winter, your body needs this fat. It is like the oil in your lamp. It gives you the energy to keep your internal fire burning. You take your knife and cut the pork into small cubes. You drop them into the pot with the beans. The salt from the meat will season the beans as they cook, making them savory and rich. There is a simple historical fact about the night shift in a cabin. Most meals were cooked in a single pot. People did not have stoves with many burners like we do now. They had one big fireplace. Using one pot was clever because it saved water and it kept all the good juices from the food together. It also meant you only had to clean one thing when you were finished. This kind of cooking is called hearth cooking, and it is a very slow way to make food. You cannot rush a pot of beans. They have to sit near the heat 4 hours, slowly soaking up the flavor of the pork. You hang the iron pot on the crane and swing it over the fire. You don't want it right in the middle of the flames, or the beans on the bottom will burn and turn bitter. You want it just to the side, where the heat is steady. You add a little bit of water and a spoonful of molasses from your small stone jar. Molasses is a thick, dark syrup that looks like black oil. It smells like burnt sugar and earth. It will make the beans turn a deep, beautiful brown and give them a sweet, smoky taste. You put the heavy iron lid on the pot with a solid clank. Now, you wait. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. The cabin is very quiet, but soon a new sound starts. It is the bubble bubble, glug glug of the pot. As the water gets hot, the beans begin to dance inside the iron walls. Then comes the smell. At first, it is just the smell of wet wood and steam, but slowly, the scent of the salt pork begins to drift out from under the lid. Then comes the sweetness of the molasses. The smell gets thicker and heavier until it fills the whole room. It is a wonderful smell. It smells like home. It makes your mouth water and your stomach growl. You sit in your chair and watch the steam escape from the edge of the lid. The steam looks like a little white ghost dancing in the firelight. You think about how lucky you are to have this food. Many people in the woods might have to eat nothing but dry corn bread for days. But you have your beans, your pork, and your molasses. You feel a sense of pride. You are taking good care of yourself. You are the cook and the guest. And tonight, the menu is perfect. Every now and then, you take a wooden spoon and stir the pot. The beans are getting softer, and the liquid is turning into a thick, brown gravy. You can see the little cubes of pork floating among the beans. They have turned from white to a soft, translucent grey. You blow on the spoon and take a tiny taste. The heat burns your tongue a little, but the flavour is deep and rich. It tastes like the earth and the fire. It is exactly what you need to fight off the chill of the buried cabin. You look at the walls of your home. The orange light from the hearth is reflected in the steam from the pot. It makes the logs look soft and warm. You feel a deep sense of peace. The snow can pile up as high as it wants outside. The wind can scream in the trees. But here, in the circle of the firelight, there is warmth and good food. You are part of a very old story. For thousands of years, people have sat by a fire and waited for a pot of beans to cook. You feel connected to all of them. You take your wooden trencher from the shelf. You ladle a big portion of the beans onto the wood. The steam rises up and warms your face. You sit back in your chair and eat slowly. Each bite is warm and filling. You feel the energy moving through your body, warming you from the inside out. The beans are soft and the pork melts on your tongue. It is a simple meal, but to you, it feels like a feast fit for a king. When you are finished, you wipe the bowl clean with a piece of dry crust. You feel full and sleepy. The night shift is a quiet one tonight. The pot is empty, the fire is low, and your belly is happy. You lean back and listen to the silence of the snow. You are the watchman of the hearth, and tonight the watch is well fed. You let out a long, satisfied sigh and watch the last of the steam vanish into the shadows of the rafters. The big iron pot is empty now, but the heat from the meal is still spreading through your body. You feel a sense of comfort, but the holiday spirit in your mind is asking for something more. In a cabin like this, a treat is a rare thing. Most days, Life is about what you need to stay alive, but Christmas is about something extra. You decide to make a small cake. You do not have eggs, and you do not have fresh milk, but you have your cleverness and your winter stores. You walk over to your small wooden box on the top shelf to find your most precious things. Inside the box, you find a small cloth bag of dried plums. Back in the autumn, you sliced these plums and dried them in the sun until they were dark and wrinkled. They are as hard as leather now, but they hold the sweetness of the summer sun inside them. You also take out your mountain of brown sugar and a small jar of fat. You move back to your table and begin to measure. In the old days, people called this a pioneer fruitcake or a poor man's pudding. It is simple, but in the middle of a buried forest, it is better than any gold. You take a bowl and mix some flour with a pinch of salt. You add a bit of the dark brown sugar that you have scraped off the cone. Then, you chop the dried plums into tiny pieces. They are sticky and sweet, and your knife makes a soft tack-tack sound on the wooden board. You drop the plums into the flour. To make the cake moist, you use a bit of warm water and a spoonful of the melted pork fat. You stir it all together with a wooden spoon. The batter is thick and dark, smelling of sugar and dry fruit. It is a heavy smell, like the earth after a rain. There is a simple historical fact about these winter cakes, because they did not have light, fluffy ingredients. These cakes were very dense and heavy. Some people joked that they were as solid as the logs in the wall, but this was actually a good thing. A heavy cake stayed fresh for a long time, and it gave you a lot of energy. You grease a small tin mug and pour the batter inside. You don't have an oven, so you use your Dutch oven. This is a large iron pot with a flat lid that has a rim around the edge. You put the mug inside the pot and set the pot on a bed of hot coals. Then, you use your shovel to put more hot coals on top of the lid. This way, the heat comes from the top and the bottom, just like a modern oven. You sit down and wait for your Christmas treat to bake. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. The cabin is very still. The only sound is the soft clink of a coal falling from the lid of the Dutch oven. You can smell the sugar starting to get hot. It is a deep, caramel smell that cuts through the scent of the pine tree and the wood smoke. It is a very rich smell. It makes the cabin feel like a palace. You think about how amazing it is that you can have such a thing here. Outside, the world is frozen and dead, but here, you are making something sweet and warm. You feel like you are winning a little game against the winter. After a while, you use a cloth to lift the heavy iron lid. A cloud of sweet steam hits your face. You use a thin sliver of wood to poke the cake. It comes out clean, which means it is done. You lift the tin mug out and let it cool for a moment. You turn it upside down, and the small cake slides out onto your wooden trencher. It is dark brown and shiny. The bits of plum look like little black jewels hidden in the bread. You sit back and look at it. It is small, only as big as your fist, but it is the most beautiful thing you have seen all week. You take your knife and cut a thin slice. The cake is warm and soft. When you take a bite, the sweetness fills your mouth. The plums are chewy and tart, and the brown sugar makes your tongue feel happy. It is a very simple taste, but after weeks of beans and corn, it feels like a miracle. You eat it slowly, savoring every single crumb. You do not want to rush this. This is your night shift celebration, and you are the only guest at the party. You think about the people far away. You think about your mother's kitchen, where she would be making big pies and roasting large birds. You miss the noise and the laughter, but you don't feel sad. You feel a sense of quiet power. You have made your own Christmas. You have taken the simple things you saved and turned them into something special. You are a settler, and a settler knows how to make a home out of nothing. This little cake is proof that you are doing more than just surviving. You are living well. The fire is glowing a deep, steady red. You look at your little tree with its popcorn strings and then back at your cake. The cabin feels very complete. You have your warmth, your food, and now your treats. You feel a deep wave of contentment wash over you. The snow can stay forever if it wants to. You are safe in your wooden shell, and you have enough sweetness to last you a long time. You take one last bite of the plum cake and let the flavor linger on your tongue. You lean back in your chair and close your eyes. The watch is peaceful tonight. The smell of the baked sugar is still in the air, mixing with the pine. You feel the weight of the night pressing against the logs, but it cannot get in. You are the watchman of the holiday, and you have done your job well. You let out a long, happy breath and listen to the heart of the fire, feeling the warmth of the cabin around you like a soft, heavy blanket. The small plum cake has warmed your heart, and the cabin feels very cozy. But the night is still long, and you are not yet ready for sleep. You sit by the fire and look at your empty hands. In the night shift of the winter, having something to do with your hands is very important. It keeps your mind steady. You look at your shelf and see a small piece of wood that you saved from the woodpile. It is a piece of cedar, about the size of a large apple. Cedar is a wonderful wood. It is soft and has a very straight grain, which makes it easy to work with. You reach for your pocket knife. This knife is your most used tool. You keep it very sharp by rubbing it on a smooth whetstone every morning. A whetstone is a flat, heavy stone that you splash with a little bit of water to help the metal slide. You feel the edge of the blade with your thumb. It is as sharp as a razor. You pick up the block of cedar and sit back in your chair. Tonight, you are going to make a small gift for your home. You decided to carve a small bird, like the little chickadees that visit your porch in the autumn. You begin by taking off the rough bark. Shuck, shuck. The knife moves through the soft wood like it is cutting through cold butter. The shavings fall onto your lap and then to the floor. They look like little curls of pale orange ribbon. As the bark comes off, the smell of the cedar fills the air. It is a sharp, spicy smell that reminds you of old chests and clean closets. It is a very dry smell, and it mixes nicely with the sweet scent of the pine tree in the corner. There is a simple historical fact about life in a cabin. Almost everything a person owned was made of wood. Because people had to make things themselves, they became very good at a skill called whittling. Whittling is the art of carving shapes out of wood using only a small knife. It was a way to make toys for children, handles for tools, or just pretty things to sit on a shelf. It was the best way to pass the time during the long, dark hours when the snow was too deep to go outside. You used the tip of your knife to mark the shape of the bird's head and its small, round body. You have to be very careful. If you push too hard, the wood might split in the wrong direction and ruin the whole thing. You move the knife slowly, taking off only tiny slivers of wood at a time. This is a very patient job. You are not just cutting, you are finding the bird inside the block of wood. You look at the way the grain of the wood flows. The grain is the pattern of lines that shows how the tree grew. You want the bird's tail to follow the line of the grain so it will be strong. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. The only sound in the room is the ticking of your knife against the wood and the soft hiss of the fire. You feel very focused. The rest of the world has disappeared. There is no snow, no wind, and no cold. There is only the wood and the blade. You feel the texture of the cedar. It is slightly oily and very smooth. As you carve, the bird begins to show itself. First the beak, then the curve of the back, then the little pointed tail. You use a special piece of microhistory to finish your work, a bit of dried shark skin or a very rough hostile plant. Before people had sandpaper, they used things from nature to make wood smooth. The hostile plant grows near the river and has a lot of silica in it, which makes it feel like very fine sand. You rub the little wooden bird with the dried plant. Scritch, scritch, scritch. The rough marks of the knife disappear. The cedar turns from a dull orange to a soft, glowing peach color. It feels like silk under your fingers. You hold the little bird up to the firelight. The orange glow of the coals makes the wood look warm, as if the bird were alive. It is not perfect. One wing is a bit higher than the other, but you like it that way. It shows that it was made by a person, not a machine. You feel a sense of accomplishment. You have turned a piece of firewood into a little piece of art. You walk over to your shelf and clear a small space next to your tin cup. You set the bird down. The bird looks very happy there. It is a small reminder of the spring that is hidden under the snow. You think about how the real birds are huddling together in the thick pine branches right now, waiting for the sun. Your wooden bird doesn't have to worry about the cold. It will stay here on the shelf, guarding your cabin while you sleep. Every time you look at it, you will remember this quiet night by the fire. You wipe your knife on your trouser leg and close the blade with a solid click. You brush the cedar shavings off your lap. They will make good kindling for the fire tomorrow morning. You feel a deep sense of peace. You have used your hands to create something beautiful out of nothing. This is the secret of the night shift. You don't just wait for the time to pass. You use the time to make your life better. You sit back and look at your new friend on the shelf. The shadows of the fire move around it, making it look like it might take flight at any moment. You are the watchman of the cabin, and now you have a little helper to keep the watch with you. You feel the weight of sleep finally starting to pull at your shoulders. The work is done, the bird is carved, and the night is moving toward the dawn. You let out a long, quiet breath and watch the last of the cedar scent drift up toward the dark ceiling. You lean your head back against the top of your chair. The little wooden bird you carved is sitting on the shelf, and the fire is glowing like a soft, red eye in the corner. The cabin is so quiet that you can hear the tiny ticking of the logs as they cool down. You close your eyes, and as you breathe in the scent of the pine and the cedar, your mind begins to drift. You are no longer in the buried cabin. You are traveling back in time, across the miles and across the years. You are going back to the place where you grew up. In your mind, you are standing in your mother's kitchen. It is a very big room, much bigger than your whole cabin. The walls are made of smooth white plaster, and there are big windows that let in the bright morning sun. It is not quiet there. It is a place of happy noise. You can hear the clatter-clack of wooden spoons hitting the sides of ceramic bowls. You can hear the hiss of the big black kettle sitting on the iron hook over the fire. Most of all, you can hear the voices. There is a simple historical fact that you remember. In the 1800s, families were often very large. It was common for a mother and father to have 8, 10, or even 12 children. In your memory, the kitchen is full of brothers and sisters. There is the sound of heavy boots on the floorboards and the high, bright laughter of the younger children playing with a rag doll in the corner. It is a busy, warm, and crowded world. Compared to your lonely cabin under the snow, it feels like a different planet. You can smell the kitchen as if you were standing there right now. It smells of fresh yeast and rising bread. You remember a specific piece of micro-history that sat in the wall next to the main fireplace, the beehive oven. This was a deep, round hole built into the side of the brick chimney. It looked a bit like the dome of a bee's nest. Your mother would build a small fire inside the oven itself to get the bricks very hot. Then, she would scrape the coals out and slide in long wooden paddles covered in loaves of dough. You remember the sound the paddle made as it slid across the stone floor of the oven, a dry sound. You remember the way the kitchen felt when the oven door was opened. A wave of thick, hot air would rush out, smelling of toasted grain and sweet crust. You would wait by the table, hoping for the heel of the loaf, the crunchy, dark end of the bread that was still steaming and soft on the inside. You can almost feel the warmth of that bread in your hands now. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. In the quiet of your cabin, that memory feels very bright and loud. You sit perfectly still, letting the ghosts of the past move around you. You hear the thump-thump of the butter churn and the whistling of your father as he comes in from the barn with a pail of fresh milk. You remember the way the light danced on the copper pots hanging from the ceiling. For a few minutes, you are not a lonely settler in a frozen woods. You are a child again, safe in a house full of people who love you. You think about the night shift your mother used to work. Long after the children were in bed, she would stay by the fire. You remember seeing the light of her single candle through the cracks in the floorboards of the loft where you slept. She would be spinning wool or sewing shirts, her hands never stopping. You realize now that she was a watchman, too. She was keeping the house safe while everyone else slept. You feel a new kind of respect for her. You are doing the same thing now, just in a different place. The memory of the kitchen makes you feel warm, but it also makes you feel a little bit of an ache in your chest. It is a feeling called homesickness. It is not a bad feeling, but it is a heavy one. It is the feeling of missing the people who know your name. You think about your sister's braided hair and your brother's messy desks. You wonder what they are doing right now. Are they sitting around a big table? Are they telling stories and eating plum cake? You hope they are thinking of you, too. You remember the flavor of those old days. It wasn't just the food. It was the feeling of being part of something big. In your cabin, you have to do everything yourself. In your mother's house, everyone had a job. One person fetched the water, one person swept the floor, and one person watched the baby. It was a team. Here, you are the whole team. You are the cook, the wood chopper, the mender, and the watchman. It is a lot of work, but the memory of that busy house gives you strength. It reminds you of why you wanted your own place. You wanted to build a home that would one day be just as full and happy as the one you left. The fire in your hearth pops loudly, and the sound brings you back to the present. You open your eyes. The white plaster walls of your memory are gone, replaced by the dark, heavy logs of your cabin. The windows are not bright with sun. They are blocked by the blue wall of the snow. The kitchen full of children is gone, and there is only the soft hiss of your tallow candle. You are back in the deep, silent winter, but you don't feel lonely anymore. The memory of the kitchen is like a fire that you can carry in your mind. It keeps you warm even when the thermometer outside says it is freezing. You realize that you have brought a piece of that house with you. You have the same kind of iron pot. You have the same kind of woolen blankets. You even have the same smell of wood smoke. You are building a new version of that old life, one log at a time. You reach out and touch the edge of your table. It is solid and real. You are the watchman of this new home. One day, perhaps, there will be children playing in this room. One day, this cabin will be full of the clatter-clack of spoons and the sound of laughter. You are the first person here, the one who starts the story. You are the one who stays awake in the dark to make sure the future has a warm place to grow. You feel a sense of peace wash over you. The dream was good, but the reality is good, too. You have your own fire. You have your own roof. You have your own bird on the shelf. You lean back and let your breathing slow down. The silence of the woods is not empty. It is full of the things you are planning to build. You listen to the quiet heart of the cabin and feel the weight of the past and the hope of the future resting gently on your shoulders. The watch continues, and the memory of the kitchen is your light in the dark. You reach your hand out toward the small wooden shelf that sits just above your bed. Your fingers move through the dim light of the cabin until they touch something smooth and cool. It is your book. In this buried world, where the snow has hidden the paths and the trees are locked in ice, this book is one of your most precious things. It is not a new book with a bright cover. It is old and worn. The edges of the cover are rubbed soft, like the ears of a tired dog. You pull it down from the shelf and bring it into the circle of light near the fire. The book is covered in dark brown leather. As you hold it, you can feel the grain of the skin and the little bumps where the leather was stretched over the thick boards of the cover. You sit back in your chair and let the weight of the book rest in your lap. It feels heavy and solid, like a stone from the river. You can smell it now that it is near the heat. It smells of old dust, dried ink, and a faint, sweet scent that reminds you of autumn leaves. This is the smell of rag paper. There is a simple historical fact that you think about as you run your hand over the cover. In the old days, books were very expensive and hard to find. Most people who moved out into the woods could only bring 1 or 2 books with them because they were so heavy and took up too much room in the wagon. A book was treated with great care, like a piece of fine gold. People would read the same book over and over, sometimes hundreds of times, until they knew every single word by heart. In a lonely cabin, a book was not just a thing to read. It was a friend that never got tired of talking to you. You open the front cover. You see a beautiful pattern on the inside of the paper. This is a special piece of microhistory, marble paper. To make this paper, an artist would float different colors of paint on top of a tray of thick liquid and stir them with a comb to make swirls and waves. Then, they would lay the paper on top to catch the pattern. The inside of your book is full of swirls of deep blue, dark red, and gold. It looks like a tiny sunset caught on a page. You trace the lines with your finger, feeling the smoothness of the paper. You turn the pages slowly. The paper is thick and a bit yellow from age. It does not feel like the thin, white paper we have today. This is rag paper, made from old bits of linen and cotton cloth that were ground up and pressed into sheets. You can see tiny threads of blue and red buried deep inside the paper if you look closely. Every time you turn a page, it makes a soft crackle sound, like the dry grass moving in the wind. You find the place where you stopped reading last time. The words on the page are printed in a deep, black ink. In the flickering light of the tallow candle, the letters seem to jump and dance. You decide to do something you haven't done in a long time. You decide to read out loud. The mountain was tall, you say. Your voice sounds very deep and strange in the quiet room. Because you haven't spoken to anyone for many days, the sound of your own voice surprised you. It feels like someone else is in the room with you. You clear your throat and continue. The mountain was tall, and the snow was deep upon its head. You speak the words slowly, letting each one hang in the air for a moment. You want to hear the flavor of the words. Reading aloud is a wonderful thing during the night shift. When you read with your eyes only, the story stays inside your head. But when you speak the words, they fill the cabin. They bounce off the logs and hide in the shadows of the rafters. It makes the cabin feel less empty. You read a story about a great journey, about people walking through green fields and sitting under the shade of big oak trees. As you read, the white wall of snow outside the window seems to melt away in your mind. You can see the green grass. You can hear the birds. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. You stop speaking and just listen. The silence rushes back into the room at water filling a hole. But it is a different kind of silence now. It is a full silence. The words you spoke are still there, resting on the shelves and the table. You feel a deep sense of peace. You realize that even though you are the only person for miles, you are not truly alone. The person who wrote this book lived a long time ago, in a place far away, but their thoughts are here with you. You are sharing a moment with them across the years. You look at a small mark in the corner of one page. It is a brown stain from a drop of tea or coffee. You wonder who made that mark. Was it your father? Was it a stranger who owned the book before you? You feel a connection to all the people who have held this book and read these same words. You are part of a long chain of readers, all of them looking for a bit of light in the dark. You continue to read for a long time. The candle burns lower, and the fire in the hearth turns into a pile of glowing orange jewels. You read about heroes and adventures, about simple people doing their best in a big world. You find that the stories give you courage. If the people in the book could survive their troubles, then you can survive this winter. The book is like a map for your heart. It tells you that the world is big and full of wonder. Even when you are trapped in a small wooden box, your eyes begin to feel a bit tired. The black letters are starting to blur together. You reach for a small piece of blue ribbon and place it between the pages to mark your spot. You close the book with a gentle thud. You feel the cool leather one last time before you set it back on the table. You feel a sense of gratitude toward the book. It has taken you on a trip without you ever having to leave your chair. You look at the shadows on the wall. They look soft and friendly now. The stories have chased away the lonely feelings that sometimes creep in with the cold. You feel like the watchman of a library. Even though your library only has a few books, you are the keeper of the stories. You are the one who makes sure the words don't get forgotten in the snow. You lean forward and blow out your candle. The smoke from the wick smells sharp and waxy. For a second, you can see the glowing red end of the string before it goes black. Now, the only light is the soft red glow from the fire. You sit in the dark and think about the things you read. The words are like little seeds planted in your mind. They will grow while you sleep, and tomorrow they will help you feel strong again. The watch is quiet and the air is still. You feel the weight of the book in your memory, solid and warm. You are tucked away in your cabin, but your mind is free to wander through the pages of the world. You let out a long, happy sigh and listen to the soft breathing of the fire. The night is deep, but you have the company of old words to keep you safe until the morning. You close your eyes and let the stories carry you towards sleep, feeling the strength of the logs and the magic of the pages all around you. The morning light is trying to find its way into your cabin, but it has a difficult job. The snow is piled high against the logs, and the cold outside has spent the night fighting to get through the thick glass of your single window. You wake up and see that the light in the room is a pale, silvery blue. You walk over to the window to see if you can peek at the world outside, but the glass is no longer clear. It has been covered from top to bottom in a layer of white ice. This is not just a thin sheet of frost. It is a garden made of frozen water. You lean in close to look at the patterns. In the 1800s, people called these ice flowers or Jack Frost's garden because the air inside your cabin is a little bit damp from your breathing and your cooking pot. That moisture has touched the freezing glass and turned into ice instantly. It does not look like regular ice. It has grown into beautiful, complicated shapes. You see things that look like tiny silver ferns, long feathers of a white bird, and stars with 1,000 points. Each one is perfect, and each one is different. There is a simple historical fact that you think about as you study the glass. In the old days, glass was not perfectly smooth like the windows we have today. It was made by blowing a big bubble of hot, melted glass and spinning it until it was flat. This created small ripples and waves in the surface. These little bumps on the glass are what gave the ice flowers a place to start growing. The ice followed the path of the glass, creating swirls and curves that look like a secret map of the wind. You reach out and touch the glass with the tip of your finger. The ice feels very cold, but also very smooth and dry. Under your touch, a tiny part of a silver fern begins to melt. It turns back into a clear drop of water that runs down the pane. You feel a little bit sorry for breaking the pattern, These ice flowers are a piece of micro-history that most people today may get to see because modern houses are kept so warm. In your cabin, the window is a place where the inside world and the outside world meet and create something beautiful together. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. The room is very still. You can hear the ticking of the ice as it expands on the glass. It is a very tiny sound, like a secret whisper. You stand there for a long time, just watching the way the silvery light shines through the frost. It makes the cabin feel like a palace made of crystal. You feel a deep sense of wonder. Even though you are trapped and the winter is hard, it can still make things that are pretty to look at. You don't need a painting on your wall when you have a window like this. You think about the science of the frost without calling it by a big name. You know that the flowers grow best when the fire is low and the night is very, very cold. They are a sign of how strong the winter is, but they are also a shield. The layer of ice on the inside of the glass actually helps keep a tiny bit of the heat from escaping. It is like the window has put on a thin white coat to help you stay warm. You look at a shape that looks exactly like a tall pine tree. It has branches and needles, all made of white ice. It is a tiny version of the big trees that are standing outside under the real snow. You realize that the winter is everywhere. It is in the woods. It is on your roof, and it is right here on your window. You are living inside the heart of the ice, but you are not afraid. You are warm in your woolen shirt, and you have your fire waiting to be fed. You decide not to scrape the frost away. You want to let it stay as long as it can. You like the way it hides the white wall of snow outside. It makes you feel like you are looking at a magical forest instead of a buried yard. You move your chair a little bit so you can see the window while you sit. The light from the hearth catches the edges of the ice flowers and makes them sparkle like they are covered in silver dust. You think about the people in the big cities who have warm houses and many candles. They might never see a garden of ice like this. They might think the winter is just a bother. But here, you see the truth of it. You see that the cold has its own way of making the world look special. It takes the simple water from the air and turns it into art. You feel a sense of pride that you are here to see it. You are the only person in the world who will ever see these specific ice flowers before they melt away. The watch is quiet and the light is soft. You feel a deep peace in your mind. The frost on the glass is a reminder that beauty can be found in the hardest places. You don't need much to be happy. Sometimes just a frozen window is enough to fill your heart with joy. You lean your head back and watch the way the shadows of the ice ferns move on the floor as the sun gets higher. You are the watchman of the crystal garden, and the morning is full of silver light. The fire is a low, red glow in the hearth, and the cabin has settled into its deepest midnight rest. You are sitting in your chair, wrapped in your thickest blanket, just listening to the silence of the buried world. The ice flowers on the window are glowing a faint, ghostly white in the dark. Then, out of the heavy stillness of the woods, a sound breaks through the logs. It is a long, shaky hoo-hoo-hoo. It is the call of an owl. The sound is very clear and very lonely. It sounds like a question asked into the dark. You sit up a little straighter. In this frozen place, hearing another living thing is a big event. The owl is somewhere out there, sitting on a branch of a tall pine tree that is probably heavy with a foot of snow. You imagine him with his feathers puffed out until he looks like a big, soft ball of grey fluff. He has a special way of keeping warm called insulation. His feathers trap a layer of air against his skin, just like your woolen blankets trap your body heat. There is a simple historical fact that you think about. Many settlers called the great horned owl the tiger of the woods. This is because he is a very strong hunter, even in the middle of a freezing winter night. While the rest of the world is sleeping or hiding from the cold, the owl is wide awake. He's working the night shift too. He's looking for a tiny mouse or a rabbit moving across the top of the snow. His eyes are huge and yellow, and they can see in the dark much better than yours can. You hear the owl call again. Hoo hoo hoo. The sound is a bit further away now, moving toward the valley. You think about his wings. This is a beautiful piece of micro-history. An owl's feathers have soft, fringed edges that make them silent. When he flies, he does not make a flap-flap sound like a crow or a duck. He moves through the air like a ghost. He can drop down from a tree and catch his supper without the mouse ever hearing him coming. In a world as quiet as this one, silence is his best tool. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. You wait for the owl to speak again, but the woods have gone quiet once more. You feel a strange sense of friendship with that bird. You are both alone in the dark. You are both watching the world while it is frozen. You are the watchman inside the logs, and he is the watchman in the trees. You feel a little less lonely knowing that he is out there, breathing the same cold air and watching the same white snow. The owl's voice reminds you that the woods are not empty. Even when you cannot see anything but snow, life is still happening. There are foxes with bushy tails tucked over their noses. There are deer huddling together under the low branches of the cedar trees. Everyone is just trying to make it to the morning. You feel a deep respect for all of them. It is not easy to live in the dead of winter, but the owl sounds like he is doing just fine. He sounds like he owns the night. You look at the red coals in the fireplace. They pulse with light, almost like they are breathing. You think about how the owl sees your cabin. To him, the smoke coming out of your chimney must look like a grey ribbon floating in the starlight. He might smell the wood smoke and know that a human is nearby. You wonder if he looks down at your roof and wonders what is happening inside. To him, you are just another creature in a den, waiting for the sun. The silence of the woods feels a bit friendlier now. The owl's call has broken the spell of the heavy quiet. You feel a sense of peace. You are part of a big, wild world that doesn't stop just because it gets cold. You are all in this together, the trees, the owl, the mice, and you. You take a deep breath and smell the dry, dusty air of the cabin. You feel safe and warm, but you also feel a little bit of the wildness of the forest inside your heart. You lean back and close your eyes. You listen very hard, hoping to hear that hoo-hoo-hoo one more time. But the owl has found what he was looking for, or maybe he has flown over the next ridge. The only sound now is the tiny pop of a spark in the hearth. You feel a wave of sleepiness wash over you. The owl has told you that the night is safe. He is on duty, and you can rest. You think about the night shift of the forest. It is a busy time, even if it is quiet. The owl is your neighbor, and he has checked in on you. You feel a deep, quiet comfort. The watch is going well. The world is tucked under its white blanket, and the guardian of the trees is watching over the woods. You let out a long, slow breath and let the image of the big, grey bird fade into your dreams, feeling the solid strength of the cabin all around you. You pull your wooden table closer to the hearth, where the light is the strongest. The fire is a steady friend, casting long, jumping shadows across the room. You have a special task tonight. While the snow sits heavy on your roof and the owl keeps watch in the pines, you want to send a message to the world outside. You reach for your small wooden box and pull out a single sheet of paper, a small glass bottle, and a long, thin bird feather. This is your writing kit. In this lonely place, writing a letter is how you talk to the people you love. The paper is thick and cream-colored. It feels slightly rough, like the skin of a peach. You place it carefully on the table. Next, you pick up the bird feather. This is a quill. It is a piece of micro-history that everyone used before there were metal pens or pencils. You made this quill yourself from the wing feather of a large wild turkey you found in the woods. To make it work, you had to cut the tip of the feather at a sharp angle with your small pocket knife. This created a tiny mouth that can hold a drop of ink. You open the small glass bottle. The smell of the ink is very sharp and metallic. It smells like old pennies and vinegar. This is iron gall ink. There is a simple historical fact about this ink. It was made from the crushed galls or bumps found on oak trees mixed with iron salts. When you first write with it, the words are a pale grey colour, but as the ink stays on the paper and touches the air, it turns a deep, permanent black. It is an ink that is meant to last for 100 years. You dip the tip of your turkey feather into the black liquid. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. The only sound is the scratch of the quill against the paper. It is a very satisfying sound, like a tiny mouse nibbling on a crust of bread. You write slowly. You have to dip the feather back into the bottle after every few words. You write about the deep snow. You write about the little balsam tree in the corner, and the way the cabin smells of pine and wood smoke. You write about the owl you heard in the night. You want the person who reads this to feel what it is like to be here, tucked away in the heart of the winter. As you write, you have to be very careful not to let a big drop of ink fall from the feather. If you do, it will make a blot, which is a big black stain that ruins the page. You keep a small bowl of fine, dry sand on the table. This is called pouts. When you finish a line of writing, you sprinkle a little bit of the sand over the wet ink. The sand soaks up the extra liquid, so you don't smudge the words with your hand. You then tilt the paper and blow the sand back into the bowl. It is a slow, careful way to work, but it feels right in this slow, careful life. You write about your mother's kitchen and the memory of the beehive oven. You write about the little wooden bird on your shelf. You find that putting your thoughts into words makes you feel less alone. It is like you are having a conversation with a friend, even though that friend might be hundreds of miles away. You tell them that you are safe and that you have enough beans and salt pork to last until the spring. You tell them that you are the watchman of the night shift and that you are doing your job well. You look at the words on the page. They are written in cursive with long, beautiful loops and curves. In the flickering light of the candle, the black ink looks shiny and wet. You think about the journey this letter will take. When the snow finally melts and the paths are open, a man on a horse might carry this in a leather bag across the mountains. It might take weeks or even months to reach its destination, but the words will stay strong. They are your voice, frozen on the paper, waiting for someone to hear them. You finish the letter and sign your name at the bottom. You feel a sense of relief. You have shared your story. You have made a record of this quiet night. You fold the paper carefully into a small square. You don't have an envelope, so you use a piece of sealing wax. This is a hard, red stick made of resin and beeswax. You hold the end of the stick over the candle flame until a few drops of hot, red liquid fall onto the fold of the paper. While the wax is still soft, you press your thumb into it to leave your mark. The wax cools and turns hard and brittle. Now your secret thoughts are locked inside. You place the letter on the shelf next to your book. It is a small thing, just a piece of paper and some oak gall ink, but it feels heavy with meaning. It is a bridge between your cabin and the rest of the world. You feel a deep sense of peace. You have reached out into the dark, and you have said, "I am here." You clean your quill feather and put the lid back on the ink bottle. The smell of the metal ink lingers in the air for a moment before the scent of the pine tree takes over again. You feel a bit tired now, but it is a good kind of tired. You have used your mind and your hands to do something important. You have kept the watch by telling the truth about your life. The fire is getting lower, and the red coals are starting to look like sleepy eyes. You sit back and look at your folded letter. You imagine someone opening it in a sunny room far away. You imagine them smiling as they read about your little wooden bird. You feel a sense of connection that makes the cold woods feel a little warmer. The watch continues, and now you have a message waiting for the spring. You let out a long, quiet breath and listen to the stillness of the snow, feeling the solid strength of your walls and the warmth of the words you have written. You wake up, and the first thing you notice is the sound of the fire. It is not the happy crack-pop of a fresh log. Instead, it is a low, sleepy hiss. You look at the hearth and see that the big oak log has finally turned into a heap of grey ash. The cabin feels much colder than it did yesterday. You can see a thick frost on the blankets near your face. You know what this means. You need more wood. But to get to your wood pile, you have to face the mountain of white that is still pressing against your door. You stand up and pull on your heavy woolen coat. Your muscles feel a bit stiff, but you move slowly to warm them up. You walk to the door and lift the heavy wooden bar. Because the snow is piled so high outside, you cannot push the door out. You have to pull it toward you. As the door swings open, a solid wall of white snow stands there, looking back at you. It is like a giant, cold brick has been placed in your doorway. It is perfectly smooth and silent. You reach for your shovel. This is a special piece of microhistory. A wooden snow shovel with an iron shoe. Most of the shovel is made from a wide, flat piece of ash wood. It is light so your arms don't get too tired, but the very edge of the shovel has a thin strip of iron nailed onto it. This is the shoe. It helps the wood cut through the hard, crusty parts of the snow without splintering. You feel the cold weight of the iron as you lift it. Your hands are covered in thick leather mittens that smell of old grease and wood smoke. You take the first scoop. Shuck! The sound is very soft. You toss the snow behind you into a corner of the cabin. You have to be careful not to make a mess, but right now, your priority is making a path. You dig and dig, moving the white powder out of the way. As you move forward, you are not just clearing a path, you are carving a tunnel. Because the snow is so deep, maybe 6 or 7 feet high, you are digging a hole straight through the middle of it. There is a simple historical fact that you think about. During the coldest winters in the 1800s, some pioneers lived in their homes for weeks without ever seeing the ground. They would dig a whole network of tunnels under the snow. One tunnel would go to the woodpile, another to the well for water, and another to the small barn where the animals were kept. These tunnels were actually quite warm because the thick snow blocked the freezing wind. It was like living in a giant, white beehive. You move deeper into the snow. Now, you are completely inside the tunnel. You look up and see that the roof is made of white crystals. You are surrounded by the winter. A strange thing happens to the light here. It is no longer the orange glow of the fire or the grey light of the cabin. Inside the snow tunnel, the light is a beautiful, glowing electric blue. It is a color you only see in the heart of a glacier or deep under a frozen lake. It makes your hands look pale and your shovel look like it is made of silver. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. You stop digging and just stand there. You are inside a world of blue ice. You cannot hear the fire anymore. You cannot hear the wind. You are wrapped in the most perfect quiet you have ever known. It feels like the earth is holding its breath. You can hear the thump-thump of your own heart and the soft hiss of your breath as it turns into mist. You feel very small, but you also feel very safe. The snow is like a giant, cold pillow protecting you from the rest of the world. You start digging again. You can feel the heat in your shoulders and the burn in your arms. It is hard work, but it feels good to move. You are fighting for your fire. Every shovel full of snow brings you closer to the logs. You remember when you stacked that wood back in the autumn. You spent days carrying the heavy pieces of oak, hickory, and maple. You stacked them neatly, bark side up, so the rain would run off them. You remember how the sun felt hot on your neck and how the grass was still green. that seems like 1,000 years ago now. Finally, the iron shoe of your shovel hits something hard and brown. Clack! It is the edge of your woodpile. You have reached the treasure. You clear away the last bit of snow and see the dark, dry logs waiting for you. They are cold, but they are dry. You reach out and grab a heavy piece of hickory. Hickory is a wonderful wood for the night shift. It burns with a very hot, bright flame and smells like a summer campfire. You pick up a small tool called a wood hod. This is another piece of micro-history. It is a simple wooden box with a handle across the top, used for carrying logs without getting your clothes dirty or dropping splinters on the floor. You fill the hod with the best logs you can find. You take the oak for a long, slow burn and the hickory for a quick, happy heat. You feel the weight of the wood in your hands. It is the weight of survival. You turn around and walk back through your blue tunnel. It is a short trip, but it feels like you are walking from one world into another. You step back into the cabin and pull the door shut. You drop the wooden bar into place. The room feels very dark after the bright blue of the snow, but it also feels incredibly warm. You walk over to the hearth and place the new logs on the dying embers. A few seconds pass. Then, a tiny yellow flame at the side of the hickory log. It grows bigger. It turns into a bright, dancing fire. The orange light rushes out to fill the room, chasing away the blue shadows you brought in from the tunnel. You sit down in your chair and let out a long, tired breath. Your arms are aching, and your face is cold, but you have done it. You have reached the wood. The fire is fed, and the cabin will stay warm for another day. You look at the door. You know the tunnel is still there, a secret blue path hidden under the white mountain. You feel like a clever fox that has dug its way into a warm den. You are the watchman, and you have won a battle against the snow. You lean back and watch the hickory fire dance. The smell of the fresh wood begins to fill the air, mixing with the scent of the pine tree and the old smoke. You are tucked away, you are safe, and the watch continues in the warmth of the new fire. The heat from your new hickory fire has filled the room, and the cabin feels like a warm, golden bowl. You have finished your work for the day, but there is one more thing you want to see before you rest. You have spent so much time inside these four walls, and so much time under the blue roof of your snow tunnel, that you have almost forgotten what the sky looks like. You put on your thickest woolen hat and your heavy coat once more. You pick up your lantern and walk back to the door. You pull the string, slide the door open, and step into the cold, quiet air of your white hallway. You walk through the blue tunnel you dug earlier. The snow is hard and frozen on the sides, and it feels like you are walking through the ribs of a giant white whale. When you reach the end of the tunnel, you don't stop. You use your shovel to clear a few more feet until you reach the very top of the snow mountain. You climb out and stand on the surface of the world. It is the first time in days that you have been completely outside. You are standing on top of 6 feet of packed snow, and the world looks like a flat, white ocean under the moonlight. You look up, and the sight takes your breath away. The storm is gone, and the clouds have vanished. The sky is a deep, velvety black, like a piece of dark cloth that has never been touched, and scattered across that blackness are millions and millions of stars. They are not soft and blurry like the stars in the summer. These are winter stars, sharp, bright, and cold. They look like tiny holes poked in the floor of heaven, letting the light of another world shine through. They do not just sit there. They twinkle and pulse with a hard, silver light. There is a simple historical fact that you think about as you stand in the cold. Back in the 1800s, there were no streetlights or big cities to hide the stars. The night sky was much brighter then than it is now. For people living in lonely cabins, the stars were their only clock and their only map. They knew the names of all the patterns in the sky, which they called constellations. They watched the way the stars moved through the seasons, and they knew exactly when the winter was at its deepest point just by looking at the position of the Great Bear or the Seven Sisters. You reach into your deep coat pocket and pull out a piece of microhistory, a brass spyglass. This is a small telescope that slides in and out to get longer or shorter. It is made of polished yellow metal and has a tiny glass lens at each end. You bought this from a sailor in a port town many years ago. You pull the spyglass out to its full length. It makes a soft zeep sound. You hold it up to your eye and point it at the stars. Through the glass, the stars turn from tiny dots into big, glowing sparks. You can see the different colors. Some are icy blue, some are a pale yellow, and some look like glowing red embers. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. You stand perfectly still on top of the snow. The silence is so big that it feels like it reaches all the way to the moon. You don't hear any wind. You don't hear any animals. You only hear the tiny tinkle of the ice crystals on the snow moving under your boots. You feel very small under that giant, star-filled sky. You realize that while you were worried about your beans and your woodpile, the whole universe was sitting up here, waiting for you to look at it. It is a very peaceful feeling to know that you are part of something so much bigger than your cabin. You look for the North Star. It is a steady, quiet light that never moves. For hundreds of years, it has been the friend of the traveler and the pioneer. You think about all the other people who are looking at that same star right now: sailors on the ocean, hunters in the mountains, and other settlers in their cabins. Even though you are alone, the stars make you feel connected to everyone else. You are all looking at the same map. The air is so cold that it makes your eyes water. You can feel the moisture on your eyelashes starting to turn into tiny beads of ice. You take a deep breath, and the cold air feels like it is made of needles. It is a clean, sharp feeling. You look at the moon. It is a thin, silver sliver, like a fingernail mark in the sky. It casts a soft, blue light over the white world. The shadows of the trees on the snow look like long, black fingers. Everything is sharp and clear, like a drawing made with ink. You think about the term the watchman. Looking at the stars makes you feel like the guardian of the whole woods. You are the only person awake to see this beautiful show. You are the witness to the winter night. You feel a sense of pride. It took a lot of work to dig through that snow and climb up here, but the reward is worth it. You are seeing a world that is completely pure and untouched. There are no tracks in the snow except your own. There is no smoke in the air except the tiny ribbon from your chimney. You pull the spyglass away from your eye and slide it shut. The brass feels like ice against your fingers. You know it is time to go back inside. The cold is starting to seep through your heavy coat and move into your bones. But you don't want to leave. You take one last look at the stars, trying to memorize the way they look. You want to carry this light back down into your dark cabin. You want to remember that even in the middle of the winter, the world is full of bright things. You turn around and slide back down into your blue tunnel. It feels warm and cozy after the biting air of the surface. You walk back toward the light of your cabin door. You can see the orange glow of the fire reflecting off the snow walls. It looks like the heart of a giant, warm mountain. You step inside, pull the door shut, and drop the bar. You are home. You walk over to the hearth and rub your hands together near the flames. Your skin feels tingly and hot as the warmth returns. You feel a deep sense of calm. You have seen the stars, and they have told you that the world is still there. The sun will come back, the snow will melt, and the green grass will grow again. But for now, the winter is beautiful. You are the watchman, and you have seen the stars on their night shift. You sit down in your chair and let the warmth wash over you. The image of the bright, silver stars is still behind your eyelids. You feel safe and tucked away. The watch is quiet, and the night is full of light, even if it is hidden under the snow. You let out a long, happy breath and listen to the soft breathing of the fire, feeling the solid strength of the logs around you like a protective shell. The stars are watching the woods, and you are watching the fire, and all is well. You sit back in your wooden chair and let your hands rest on the smooth arms of the seat. The fire is burning with a steady, quiet heat. You have been through the storm. You have dug your tunnels. You have mended your clothes and carved your gifts. Now, as the holiday draws closer, you feel a new sensation. It is not the busy feeling of work, and it is not the heavy feeling of worrying. It is a deep, quiet sense of peace. You look around your small cabin, and for the first time, you don't see a prison made of logs. You see a perfect, safe home that you built with your own two hands. In this moment, being in the middle of nowhere feels like the best place in the world. Outside, the world is crowded with wind and ice, but inside, everything has its place. You look at your iron pot, your wooden bowls, and your stack of blankets. Each thing is a friend. You realize that you have everything you need to be happy. You have a roof that doesn't leak, a fire that doesn't go out, and enough food to keep you strong. This is a simple historical fact. For a pioneer, peace was not about having a lot of money or fancy things. It was about being self-sufficient. This means you can take care of yourself without needing help from anyone else. You look at the corner of the room where you keep your water bucket. There is a small piece of micro-history sitting next to it, a hand-carved wooden yoke. This is a heavy piece of timber, shaped to fit across a person's shoulders. It has two hooks on the ends for carrying heavy buckets of water or wood. You remember the day you carved that yoke. You spent hours making sure the curve was just right, so it wouldn't hurt your neck. Looking at it now makes you feel proud. Every tool in this room is a part of your story. You are surrounded by the things you have mastered. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. The cabin is so quiet that you can hear the soft thrum of the heat moving through the air. You feel a sense of stillness in your heart. You are not waiting for the winter to end anymore. You are living in it. You realize that the night shift is not just about staying awake. It is about finding the beauty in the dark. You think about the silence of the woods as a gift. It has given you time to think. It has given you time to remember. It has made you realize how strong you really are. You look at the walls. The logs are thick and dark. They have been seasoned by the smoke and the time. You touch the bark of the nearest log. It feels solid and permanent. You think about how many storms these trees saw before you cut them down. They are still protecting you, even though they are no longer growing in the dirt. You feel a deep connection to the land. Even though you are separated from the earth by 6 feet of snow, you are more a part of the woods now than you ever were in the summer. You decide to treat yourself to a little bit of luxury. You reach for your small bag of tea. This is not real tea from China. It is Labrador tea, made from the dried leaves of a small shrub that grows in the box. You drop the dry, fuzzy leaves into your tin cup and add hot water from the kettle. The steam rises up, smelling of lemon and pine. You sit and sip the tea slowly. It is warm and a bit bitter, but it feels like a tonic for your soul. It tastes like the wild world outside, but it warms you from the inside out. You think about the peace of the solitary life. People in the big cities might think you are lonely, but you don't feel that way. You have the fire for company. You have the owl for a neighbor. You have the stars for a clock. You have realized that the more you do for yourself, the less you need from the world. There is a great freedom in knowing that you can survive anything the winter throws at you. You are the master of your own little island. The light from the hearth is a soft, deep orange. It makes the shadows look like velvet. You watch the way the light touches the little wooden bird on your shelf and the red berries on your tree. Everything looks perfect just the way it is. You don't want to be anywhere else. You don't want to be anyone else. You are the watchman of this cabin, and you are content. You feel a sense of gratitude for the snow. It has pushed the world away so you could find yourself. You lean your head back and close your eyes. You listen to the heartbeat of the cabin, the slow, steady pulse of the fire. You feel the warmth of the logs pressing against your back. You are tucked into the earth like a seed, and you are resting. You have found peace in the middle of nowhere, and it is the most valuable thing you own. The watch is quiet, and the night is your friend. You let out a long, satisfied breath and sink deeper into the stillness, feeling the strength of your walls and the warmth of your hearth protecting you from the frozen world. You wake up, and even before you open your eyes, you know that something is different. The air in the cabin feels lighter. There is a new kind of glow pressing against the inside of your eyelids. You sit up in your corn husk bed, and the dry rustling sounds like a happy whisper. You look at the window, and for the first time in many days, the thick ice flowers are glowing with a bright, golden fire. The sun is hitting the snow outside, and the light is bouncing through the glass. It is Christmas morning. You get out of bed and your feet hit the floorboards. They don't feel quite so cold today. You walk over to the hearth and find the fire still breathing. You add a small piece of cedar, and the bright, spicy scent fills the room instantly. You look at your little balsam tree. The red cranberries look like tiny lanterns, and the white popcorn looks like a string of pearls. You feel a deep, warm glow in your own chest. You have made it. You have lived through the long dark of the winter, and today is a day for resting and being glad. You decide to make a special breakfast. You take a small bit of the wheat flour and mix it with water, and a tiny bit of salt to make a journey cake or a hoe cake. This is a piece of micro-history that almost every traveler knew. It is a simple flatbread that was originally cooked on the flat blade of a garden hoe over an open fire. You don't use a hoe, of course. You use your iron skillet. You cook the cake until it is brown and crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. You eat it with a tiny drop of the brown sugar syrup you saved. It tastes like a celebration. There is a simple historical fact that you think about as you sit by the fire. For many pioneers, Christmas was not about a lot of gifts. It was a day of rest from the struggle. It was the one day of the year when you didn't think about the work that needed to be done tomorrow. You just sat in the light and felt thankful for your life. You look at your small wooden bird on the shelf and your book on the table. These are your gifts. You made them and you earned them. You take a moment for atmospheric silence. You sit in the silence, but it is not a lonely silence. It is a full, happy silence. You think about the night shift you have worked all winter. You have been the guardian of this little spot on the map. You have kept the fire going. You have kept the cabin warm. You have kept your spirits high. You feel like a winner. The winter is still outside, and the snow is still deep. But today, the sun is shining, and you are safe. You walk to your window and use the warmth of your hand to melt a small circle in the frost. You peer out. The world is a blinding, beautiful white. The trees are covered in diamonds of ice that sparkle in the sun. The sky is a pale, clear blue. It is a brand new world. You realize that the winter has not just been a time of waiting. It has been a time of growing. You are stronger now. You are more peaceful. You are ready for the spring when it finally comes. But for today, you just sit. You watch the light move across the floorboards. You listen to the soft crackle of the cedar in the fire. You feel the weight of the cabin around you, solid and sure. You are the watchman of the woods, and your watch has been a good one. You have found a way to be happy in the middle of a frozen world. You have turned a pile of logs into a home. The light is growing stronger now, and the shadows are retreating into the corners. You can feel the warmth of the sun even through the thick logs of the cabin. Your breathing is slow and steady, like the heartbeat of the sleeping forest. The long night of the winter is starting to turn toward the morning. You feel a deep sense of safety and comfort, as if the whole world is giving you a gentle hug. There is no more work to be done right now. The wood is stacked, the belly is full, and the heart is quiet. You can let go of the worries of the night shift. The stars have done their work, the owl has finished his hunt, and the fire has kept its promise. You are protected. You are cared for. You are exactly where you are meant to be. Let the warmth of the room wash over you like a soft, woolen blanket. Let the scent of the pine and the wood smoke carry you into a deep, peaceful rest. The sun is rising. The gates are opening. The watch is ended.